thing to draw attention to that.
It would be nice. We don't have, after COVID, we don't have the spread that we had before.
Okay.
And I would like to see it do the most good.
Okay. Yeah.
That's why I'm thinking something about it. Let's shoot for throwing it on the St. Jude fundraiser then.
Yeah.
Jay.
Yeah.
I think it would be
Yeah,
awesome.
because Gary Con has a whole bunch of stuff anyway, so he might drown. Yeah.
And big legend, Joe Manganiello and all those people.
Exactly. So it will just be one of small little things. So at St. Jude it will be a center thing, and I'm also heavily involved in it. And it's also a Greyhawk centric thing. So So that sounds like.
Sorry to be sorry.
No.
Yeah.
That's
Because I think it would be most appreciated by someone in the community who's one of those people who spends. I mean, we have a couple people that.
And then we can hopefully have some new ones made. Yeah, we can have some new ones made in the not too distant future.
Absolutely.
So
So Mike and Casey are not on yet, and I know Sean's coming on late, right? So.
Yeah, Judy, she's not a big communicator. I don't know if you even heard that.
Yeah. Well, what a treat! Both
Casey may have been talking to him. I'm not sure. Yeah, it'll be good.
Casey, this is awesome.
Hello.
So, yeah. I need to log into Twitch and stuff here. So.
Oh yeah. Jeez, I gotta find that.
Yeah.
Multitasking, like usual, same as me.
Yeah.
I'm just not. You guys are much more proficient in this whole digital world.
Oh, well, I'm not so proficient in the streaming bit. I'm getting there a little bit, but yeah.
I'm just not much of a podcaster or streamer. It's just time's not there. It's just one of those things that's not high on my priority list.
No, it takes a lot more time than people think too.
Oh yeah. So there we go. Looks like in the chat. Yep, I'm in. There.
I missed my cue there.
Here we go. I actually have the last Metalwork guide open.
You are there, yes.
And okay.
Thanks, Savage. I do have yes, and a lot of the I got it off Humble Bundle a while ago from a composer who was selling it to be used for streaming and stuff. So yeah, I got like 25 to 30 albums of his stuff. So sometimes I go through and try and find some new songs, but I've just been too busy to put them in. Hey, good to see everyone. Mike needs 3 more followers for 6,000. Okay, hold on. I got one coming. Bride of Ayus. Oh, it looks like he raided into someone else. Or did I hit the wrong button? How's everyone doing tonight? Good. Here comes Mike. Mike.
Hi,
Mike Disney. Art of Mike Disney. Oh, you know what? I just hit the wrong thing. How you doing, Mike?
Howdy.
Hello.
Hi, Dave.
Hi, Mike. How are you?
Yeah, it's a Wednesday.
It is, isn't it? That it is. Okay. What am I missing here? Oh, yep. See, it's always something. Forgot to even shout out that we're on. That would help.
Mike, where do you need the followers on?
was that?
Where does Mike need the followers on?
That's Mike Disney. Art of Mike Disney.
Okay.
Yeah, that's our stream.
Okay, is that on Twitch or?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's another whole channel. He's like a few short of.
Trollord Games.
He's a
Join
crafter.
the fray.
He's a few short of 6,000, and you know how people get when they're near. I mean, how long did I up and down on
it was like 6 months or
oh
something.
my God, 10,000. Oh, it was crazy.
Yeah, you were hanging on there, and you got so close, and then they perched you a little bit.
Yeah, and now we're like 85 over it or now.
Okay,
so.
yeah. So now you got over it, and now they will not mess with it until you get to 20,000 or something. So then it will not. That will be another year of purchase hanging in the balance there.
5 years to get 10,000. So
yeah. They have these kind of rights. You have to go through the special hoops and problem. You have to solve certain issues, and there's like riddles to get to the next level.
Yeah. It's like going through a Zork adventure where it's so frustrating.
Yeah,
You're like,
leveling up is tricky in Twitch. So yeah.
It's funny. Right. Well, here.
If I jump out suddenly, it's because my great-grandson is going to bed. And he likes to come up behind me when I'm downstairs in the basement. Sneak up very loudly.
That's awesome.
But then he screams and yells. So if I
how
drop
old is
out
he?
very quickly,
Yeah.
he will be 4 next week.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Wow.
He lives with us, him and his grandson, or my grandson.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Wonderful.
Good times.
Yeah.
Or if you hear it suddenly getting loud here, that's what it is.
Yep.
He may even decide to wave at you. Sometimes he's still shy. Sometimes he's a little, hey, what's going on?
And we have ducks in the backyard, and Mike had been feeding the ducks a little bit. And today when I had lunch, all of a sudden I heard like pep 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 pep. Then they came into the kitchen and were like pep 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 pep, going around like, where's the food? So it was kind of funny. So that was so cute, kind of poking in the patio door and kind of pep 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 pep. Is there something to be had here?
Yep. Good evening, everyone. Yep.
Hey, Anna, just let you know I enjoyed the Patriot post. Talk about your game and where you're thinking about heading.
Oh, thank you.
And leveling up and stuff.
It's kind
classless one. Interesting concept.
I thought thank you. I thought I kind of get people hooked in on the discussion before. I mean, I'm nailing down. It's not like a playtest concept yet. It's like I want people to hear, because I want to hear people's feedback too on the discussion you have, most publishers have before they do a playtest kind of thing. So once you lead up to it, and I also realized that now is the time for me to, because I've felt a bit homeless since Pathfinder 1, and even then, so since 3rd edition, I haven't felt that I've had a rule system that really suited my campaign. Meaning Pathfinder was good from a technical standpoint at the time, but it was Golarian centric, and most of my players played in Golarian, so they wanted to introduce a bunch of stuff like that. So that was So I want to have my version of D&D, so to speak. So yeah.
So just do what I did, Anna, and create your own system based on
that's what I'm doing basically.
5e. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Yep.
There's Casey.
Hey, sorry I'm late.
Yeah, you're not late. We're early. We're actually on 8 minutes early because we're just, I think I forgot to run an ad or two, but I don't care. That's all right.
If you're not early, you're late.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. By the way, Casey, I still have your ghost tower here. I'll send it out tomorrow. So I've just been
no worries.
Overwhelmed with work since you actually won again. It had been a while. So good evening, everyone. Yeah, that's right. Reprint. Yeah, there you go. Casey won that on Sunday.
Yeah, I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, that's cool. So I'm J.K. Logosamba, and with me on a Living Greyhawk discussion, Anna Meyer, Greyhawk Mike Bridges, Casey Brown. And then a special guest tonight. We'll have two of them, hopefully, but one, if you've ever played in Greyhawk Reborn, you know him from there, and doing a lot of stuff from supporting us in cons, especially Virtual Greyhawk Con. Dave Guerreri. Hey, Dave.
Howdy.
Good to see you back.
Good to be here.
Thanks for joining us, Dave.
Oh, yes. Happy to be here.
This show was postponed, unpostponed, postponed, and unpostponed twice. So yes,
yeah.
So as far as doing Living Greyhawk Keoland meta orgs, which I know we had. How long? It's been over 2 years since we did that first Keoland discussion there.
I think so.
Casey, you're like Mr.
I'm pulling up my cheat sheet now.
Yeah, let's see how long ago it was. I think it was 2 years.
So,
and Casey, you are really zipping in and out bad.
Oh, I just plugged in my Ethernet.
Okay.
Oh, that's good.
I'm waiting for it to go from my slow Wi-Fi.
It's better now.
Yes.
Yep. I think it worked.
It hasn't switched over yet on my laptop.
It yourself.
Yeah.
Just disconnect Wi-Fi because most laptops seems to prefer Wi-Fi.
Yeah. Mysterious places, the Kingdom of Keoland.
Getting no internet on my Ethernet.
Oh, that is weird. Yeah, I have that map up there. Absolutely, that map is right up right now. Mac, right under me, as you see. Yep, we have that. So, but
sometimes does this.
We had a great discussion. We had a lot of people on that Keoland show, if I recall. Judy was on, right? And
I think so.
Judy and Sean Merwin were on episode 58.
Oh my gosh, and we're 202 now.
Yeah, so episode 58 would have been
almost 3 years.
July 16th of 2020.
Oh my gosh.
And we had a Keoland and Joff show.
Wow.
Combined show 3 years ago or so. And then Judy came back on for episode 91, the women, the ladies of Living Greyhawk, with Susan and Tony and our friend from the Duchy of Ernst, Denise Malden. I think that was it for that show. So, yeah, we haven't done a deep dive.
No, we're going to tonight, everyone.
And there, my Ethernet seems to have kicked in.
Yeah, it looks a lot better now. So, so Dave, you have the distinct honor, though, of being the only group that's carried on since Living Greyhawk ended.
Yeah.
So, why don't you tell?
Yes and no. Yes
we have some new people. We had a lot of new people in the audience. So, why don't you just talk about Greyhawk Reborn for a little bit?
Okay.
Yep.
Little over, actually, just a hair over 10 years ago, decided to try to pull the gaming community back together again. One of the things that I really loved about Living Greyhawk was the gaming community that built. I'd never seen anything like that. I mean, you play a little bit locally, you play with your friends, you play in your basements, and ended up getting pulled into that community and just got absolutely hooked on Living Greyhawk. The ability to take your characters and play when it's convenient, to suddenly be exposed to literally dozens of different play styles and DMing styles. And the best part of Living Greyhawk to me was how much it improved me as a gamer, as a player, as a DM, but how many great friends I've met that have turned into lifelong friends. And there was nothing that I'd ever seen before that created a community like that. That kind of fell away with Fori and Living Forgotten Realms in the RPGA. They kind of fostered, I don't want to say fostered, but a lot of it just retreated back into people's basements because that's where you could play. And I missed that gaming community. I missed getting together with my friends. So decided to do something and try to recreate that community and came up with Living Greyhawk as 5e was starting out. As a matter of fact, we started out under the playtest rules when we started. So we just wanted to try to build that community back up. Being Greyhawk, we do have issues with intellectual property. So one of our primary tenets is that the authors are running their own adventures to avoid that problematic issue, which I think leads to an exemplary play opportunity for our players because, a lot of the LG stuff that I played, the best experience I had was when I had the authors writing it, including Mr. Merwin, who will be on in a few minutes, hopefully. And that's one of the charms of us, and it also gives a much more immersive play experience because the DMs who are authoring it are much more flexible and improvisational than most other DMs who are used to, here's how you got to run it, step A, step counter B, and counter C. So they're much more willing to go where the players want to go. So it just creates a better play experience. We're running in, most of our adventures are in central Pennsylvania, the mid-Atlantic. Cons are starting to come back. We've been up at MEPACon in Bethlehem, PA, in northeastern Pennsylvania for the last couple of times that they've been out. They run 2 cons a year. As you folks know, most of the con community is kind of dissipated. Gaming stores are disappearing. But we're trying to keep this community together, and hopefully, is sounds like a lot of exciting things happening in the gaming and in the RPG community over the next 18 to 24 months in terms of new stuff. So it'll be interesting to see where we go from there. We're interested in continuing adventuring in Greyhawk. That's where our interests lie. Authors, DMs combined certainly cause some issues and concerns in terms of getting people out there and playing, and in terms of availability. That certainly limits, you just can't hand an adventure to somebody a week before the con and say, hey, you're running this 3 times. But we do have some adaptables out there as well. We've taken some of the hardback books and have adapted parts of them and put them in Greyhawk where it fits with us. And we're going to go from there. So if you're interested in what we're doing, we have a Facebook page and group. It's under the umbrella of Warduke Press, which is our LLC.
Cool.
That was created. And we also have a Patreon if you're interested. Give some in-game benefits. We have a Discord channel. We do a fair amount of online gaming. We've worked with virtual Greyhawk Con and the St. Jude's game days and things like that. So we're expanding out into that, and that's what we're doing. We're trying to keep Greyhawk alive and trying to keep a gaming community built up. That's Greyhawk Reborn in a nutshell.
Awesome. Look at that. We got to 8 o'clock on the nose, and Sean shows up. Woohoo!
Perfect.
Yep.
So that's
glad
awesome.
you can make it, Sean.
Good to see you.
It's great to see y'all.
Thanks for joining us. We went over earlier. It was July of 2020 when you and Judy were on with some of the Joff guys.
Almost
Yeah.
years. Wow.
So, yeah. But let's go ahead and fill the audience in. Sean, why don't you give your own brief introduction real quick to the audience?
Oh, I'm Sean Merwin. I was the Keoland Triad member in charge of writing adventures for about 2.5 years. I stepped down at the beginning of year 4, handing it over to Christian Alapinarian, and then who handed it over to Dave not too long after that. And since Living Greyhawk days, I have gone on to become a full-time game designer. In fact, I was late today because I had a meeting with the company that I work for called Ghostfire Gaming, which is located in Australia, hence the late night meeting.
Nice.
And so I've worked on 3rd edition, 4th edition, 5th edition D&D, other games, and Living Greyhawk was my introduction to the joy and the horror that is working in the role-playing game industry.
Yeah. And now you're also a podcaster of renown, meaning so many, Mastering Dungeons, the Ghostfire podcasts, some of the best in the industry. So yeah.
That's with Teos.
Yeah, I do Mastering Dungeons with Teos.
Yeah.
And then I do a podcast and a stream called the Eldritch Lorecast with some of my friends from Ghostfire Gaming, and a YouTube streamer and great game design mind Dale Kingsmill joins us to talk about games. So
awesome.
Both of them are fantastic, so you definitely watch them and or listen to them depending on the medium you choose. So yeah.
And if you have,
but being a full-time game designer is kind of the nerd dream. right? And weren't you also teaching a college course on game design in the past few years?
Yeah, 3 years ago, the local college here, Fredonia State University in New York, they wanted to create a creative writing major. They had a minor for creative writing, but they wanted to create a major, but they needed classes. And the person in charge of that learned from someone else that I was a game designer and had written books. And he said, "Would you teach a class on role-playing game design?" And I said,
Wow.
"Well, if you think there's anybody that wants to take it, sure, I'll teach it." So I teach it once a year. And not surprisingly, with the explosion of role-playing games, that
Right.
it's very well attended. We have to turn students away. Sadly.
Congratulations
Wow.
on that. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Thanks. Yeah.
Sean,
You
if
do
Yeah.
an online version of that, Sean.
I wish I could. Everyone said, "Well, can I take it?" And I'm like, "Well, if you enroll at Fredonia State, then yes, you can." But if I'm ever not busy, that will be the first thing I do. Is and good to see you, Dave. I haven't seen you in forever.
It's been a while.
Oh wow.
Real quick before we move on,
can't get a word
please
in.
just say hi to Teos for me. I don't know if I mentioned this a couple years ago because I'm not sure I knew your relationship with Teos 3 years ago. But Teos would travel to Houston during Living Greyhawk, and I would run Bandit Kingdoms adventures for him and some of the local players. And he traveled quite frequently. So Teos is probably the person from out of region I most bonded with or played with during Living Greyhawk. And then he and I ended up co-authoring a special mission. It was a Bandit Kingdom special mission, but it was dealing with the ramifications of a Joff Fae mod where you got knocked up with a Fae baby kind of thing. And I was like, Teos, what the hell is this all about? So he wrote half the special mission for me. So just please say I told him hello.
Send him my regards too, Sean. I mean, you two guys are, part of that community. We're trying to get together again, and you're the reason we started doing all this stuff. Just the experiences we had with guys like you and Teos and Eric Menge and so many good people.
Yeah, what a great experience all of that was in so many ways, gaming wise, socially, learning about role-playing games and what you could do with them and what you probably shouldn't try to do with them. all of that, came to light with this incredible Living Greyhawk campaign.
Absolutely. And Sean, you already said LG was your first Living campaign, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dave, was it yours? Had you done Living City or Living Death or anything before LG?
Had not. Had a gaming group that kind of broke up. Was looking for something to do. Ended up going on D&D one ads on the old forums, and ended up getting a hold of one of the guys was Eric Keene, which some of you folks probably know. One of the guys was Rob Vaughn, who I think still works in the community. Had a home game going with a couple of friends of me and a couple other local guys here. We played 2 or 3 times. And Rob was moving away, and Eric kind of said, this thing just kind of came up. You guys should look into it. I think it'd be very convenient for you. So we'll give it a try. I went down to Eric's house one night, and 4 of us played one, and we were hooked. And then went down to HawkCon down in around DC for Saturday, and ended up second and third round having the fortunate experience of having Eric Menge run us through Return of the Grand Duke. And I mean, that's it. You're hooked. I mean,
that's amazing.
We were in.
So we all 3 of us, Living Greyhawk was our first experience. Like, we didn't bring the baggage of kiddo. We didn't bring the baggage of Living City or anything like that. So, let's start chronologically. Sean, how did you become?
Let's stop for a second. Stop.
Sorry.
Stop. I can't get a word in edgewise. Stop.
All right.
First things first, Sean, if you want to shout out to your company at any point in the Twitch chat, please do.
Oh, okay.
Okay, please.
Thank you.
Or your podcasts too, please do, because people, we have a great podcast, Greycast. We'd love for other podcasts out there. People are always looking for content that's not live streamed, and here in addition. Okay. Lastly, real quick, Casey, I saw that I'm assuming Tails is Alpha Stream Is that
Yes.
his?
Yes.
He liked the post on Twitter. I was hoping he'd be in chat tonight. Hopefully I'd love to get him on the show. So just if you can relay that, we'd love to have him on the show at some point. So
I will pass along the message.
excellent, right, Casey? That would be great.
Oh, absolutely. I usually ping him on LinkedIn of all things.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, we're doing a Joust show tonight, or because he responds to LinkedIn pretty well, pretty reasonably. But
that's Dave's great grandson in the background. So just everyone note that. So yeah, there you go. All right, Casey.
Yeah, sorry, because once this train leaves the station,
I understand that 100%.
Yep.
I get it going. So
Classic D&D reprint tonight too, everyone. Your choice of this pile. Okay.
Well, why don't you show them the pile real quick before I get going again?
Tomolokon, Treasures of Greyhawk, Cult of the Reptile God, Tomb of the Avastor, a great adventure from Necromancer Games, the Silver Key, a bunch of Tomb of the Lizard King. No, that one stays for next week because of the Durgam's Folly by Mike Merles, great one. Border Watch, if you want to know about the area and not run it, that I'd recommend that. So I'm sorry, I'm being facetious now. Den of Thieves and a whole bunch of CM level, companion level adventures too. Please feel free. I know Casey, you won the Ghost Tower. You and Enoch Pratt both won a Ghost Tower. So there you go. And yeah, Dave,
I lost my original copy.
Sam Weiss participates in chat a lot now. So he's been, and we really appreciate it. So. Fable 42
from him from a GaryCon from way back in the day.
Awesome.
In Philly.
He's been participating.
He should be sitting in here.
Yeah, we've asked, so you never know. He participates a lot in the Cannon Fire Discord, and let me shout that out for everyone if you want to get in on some really in-depth discussions of Greyhawk or the Greyhawk Events Discord, where you'll find out everything about Virtual GreyhawkCon, any other events that are going on, the Leonard Kafka Archive, and anything else going on in the community. Fundraiser right there. So there you go. So all right, now I can, because I want to hear about these meta orgs because.
Well, we'll get to the meta orgs real quick, but let's just do a real quick recap of how Sean, since he was the earlier Triad member, became a Triad member, and then we'll go to Dave with the same question.
Sure. I stopped playing D&D in around 1992 when life, out of college, grad school, married, job. Okay, no more silliness. And then in 2000.
My bad. Wrong button. I apologize. We're good.
We're good?
Sorry,
We're
Sean.
good.
That's okay. At around 2000, my wife was pregnant with our child, and she was going to be taking a year off. And I thought, we're going to need something to do. We're going to be stuck at home.
Oh, wow.
Why don't we look at what's going on in D&D? And it just happened that 3rd edition just came out.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, that's great. But we're in a rural area. We couldn't really find any players. So I thought, well, maybe I live near Buffalo. Maybe there's something going on in Buffalo. And sure enough, there were people in Buffalo playing this Living Greyhawk. And I'd heard of Living City, but I'd never played it. So we started reaching out to people in Buffalo. Hey, you want to try this? Sure. So I ran an adaptable adventure from Keoland as the first adventure. The first time I really played 3rd edition even. And we got the adventure, and it was an adaptable. It was okay. It wasn't great. So I was like, oh, there are people in charge of this for our region. Let me write to them and see if I can help. So I emailed and said, is there anything I can do? And basically the answer was no. And I was like, okay. I knew nothing about anything in terms of the administration of this campaign. I didn't know any of the background of it. I played Greyhawk growing up a bit, but I wasn't a real lore master. So I was like, okay, that's no problem. I'm raising a newborn. Here we go. And then we played a couple more adventures, and I'm like, boy, I have a master's degree in English and a master of fine arts and creative writing. So like, maybe I could edit these. Maybe I could do something. So I reached out again, and I was like, can I help? And they went, no. And I'm like, okay, that's fine.
You tried twice.
Yeah. And then I started getting a little bit deeper into sort of the administration of it. And I realized that there were 3 people in charge, and each person had a different thing. And being from Keoland, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. And what I came to learn was the western half of that area, Western New York, Western Pennsylvania, is the Midwest. And then the eastern part of that is more of metro area. And their attitudes are different in those two places. And there was a lot of rancor. There was a lot of chaos going on. And I'm like, do I really want to do this? Maybe I don't. But finally it came to the point where everyone had quit and there was only one triad member left.
Oh, wow.
That was Sam Weiss was the only triad member. So I reached out again and applied to be the writing director. And I did not get it. Somebody from New York City who knew everybody in the area got it. Okay, fine. Yeah, that's fine. That person, I think, lasted a month.
Oh, wow.
And then they reapplied, resubmitted for that. And I applied again, and this time I did get it. And in the meantime, I had created some of the region. They were looking for a place to set adaptables. So I created Shell's Wake, which is a small barony at the edge of the Rushmores, as a place to set adaptable adventures. And apparently it was good enough that then got me the attention of the Triad. So I joined as the writing director. And not long after that, Sam resigned. And I was the only Triad member left.
Holy cow. All in year one.
All within, the first 6 months to a year. And what I came to find out later was that from one of the circle was that they were going to shut Keoland right down because there was so much rancor. There were problems. There were communication issues. There were a bunch of things, and they were minutes away from shutting it down. But they said, well, let's give this Sean guy a chance and see what happens.
Oh, wow.
And so luckily I had taken a year off to raise my daughter, so I didn't have a full-time job. So I just put my nose to the grindstone. Let's get these adventures out. Let's get everybody on the same page. And, but I had played, like Dave talks about meeting some great people. I met Rich Marflack and his crew from Central New York. And the first time we went to a convention, my first convention ever, we played 4 Keoland adventures, and we had 4 of the best DMs I'd ever seen. And I was like, oh, this is great. This is incredible. I want to do more with this. I want to meet more people like this. And so I have to thank Rich and his crew, Chuck Peacock and a bunch of those Central New York folks for introducing me to the campaign in such a welcoming way, making the game fun, staying with the rules, but understanding that the rules are there to facilitate fun and not to take away from the fun. That sort of lesson that helped me acclimate to this living campaign thing. And so that's how I got started. And with the makeup of the region, I could take it for about 2 years. And then I just had to step away. Right. So that my daughter was getting older. I had to start going back to work. So I'm like, okay, now it's time to gracefully step aside and let some other wonderful folks take over.
Because as we've talked about with other Triad members, and we probably touched on 3 years ago, being a Triad member could take anywhere from 20 to 80 hours of your week, or 60 or 40 a lot of the time, cranking out content, replying to player requests, or just putting things on the Yahoo groups to keep people engaged, or, just it took time, writing mods, or I found it to be time consuming to edit. The authors, they didn't want to use the template, or the story they pitched us is not what they wrote, or they didn't know about some other mod that we had in the future. And I was like, ooh, we could tie this together. I need to write a whole new chapter. So it could be very time consuming. And one other thing I want to touch upon what Sean said, he mentioned the adaptables. The adaptables were adventures that could be adapted to each region. So, for instance, Adaptable 104 was called What Lies Beneath. I don't remember what that adventure was about, but I have a copy of it.
That's the first one I played.
Nailed it.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
So each regional triad could take Adaptable 104, What Lies Beneath, and say, instead of being set in Saltmarsh or Seaton or wherever in Keoland, in the Bandit Kingdoms, it's set in Rookroost. And in Divers, it's set in Divers. So that's what an adaptable adventure was. And I don't think we've really talked about those too much on these shows. So that was a neat thing that you brought up. Cool. And then, Dave, you said you started shortly after Sean had passed it off to someone else, and then they passed it to you?
Yeah, Sean passed it to Christian, the writing part. There were 3 different triad members at any one time. One was a writing person. One was the meta org person. Sean, I forget what the third one was specifically.
Writing meta org. Wasn't it writing meta org and then like convention support? Yeah.
Now, obviously, the roles intermeshed quite a bit, and hopefully there was good communication between those folks, but that wasn't always the case. But yeah, Christian was doing the story stuff, and he did it for a couple of years, and I think it was late year 5, early year 6, I kind of came aboard. I came aboard as the convention guy. When I started playing LG, you heard my intro story to it. Grew pretty quickly. I did a fair amount of traveling to nearby areas. I wasn't one of those folks like Teos who went, or Eric Keene who went all over the place. But I enough other regions to get an appreciation for what it was. And so we ended up waiting about a year and a half, and we did our own conventions. We had a local group called the Regulators, which was pretty common for the various locations to have their own little gaming group. Just became their own little communities. Teos was part of the Raptors. I don't know if you guys up in New York had a name with you guys playing with Chuck and Kevin and Rich and those guys. But everybody had their own, so we kind of ended up being the Regulators, and a lot of people liked playing with us because we kind of sat at the table and said, you know what, we're going to have fun. We're going to entertain ourselves at least. If you want to come along for the ride, feel free to come along for the ride, but we're here to have some fun. And a lot of folks respond to that. So we ended up doing our own cons for, I don't know, year 4, year 5, year 6, year 7, year 8. And then from there, just like, look, this is great. I'm having a great time. I've been gaming since summer of 1980, almost exclusively Greyhawk, 1st edition, 2nd edition, 3rd edition. Wow. Up till 3rd. So familiar with the concept and what was going on there. And the idea that in 2000, finding out there was something out there with Greyhawk after 15 years of everything else, right. And it was it's always been my favorite world. I just like all the different aspects of it. So I decided to get involved and ended up going from, I think, conventions to, I remember getting a phone call. I was at a York Fair and got a phone call from Christian saying, I got bad news for you. You got the job. And had some great people to work with over the years, and ended up basically moving through all 3 positions over time as they kind of interacted. And after they announced that 4E was coming out, things kind of fell apart. Our story guy at that point, about a month after they announced LG or 4E was coming out, decided to bail ship. So last part, I did a lot of the adventure writing and a lot of everything to wrap things up. So, yeah.
We all wore a lot of different hats, even though we maybe had the title. Like in Bandit Kingdoms, we were point of contact, meta, and plots. But all 3 of us would communicate on the plots or conventions. My buddy Conrad Brandemule, who went on to do a lot of convention stuff for 4E and for Baldman Games, he was one of our main convention guys in the BK, but we'd be like, talking about adventures with him and whatnot. So real quick, before we move on to the actual meta orgs themselves, one of the ways people found out about Living Greyhawk was to Living Greyhawk Gazetteer, and Gary Holian, I mean, the Keoland expert, hopefully he will join us.
This is huge. Yeah. This is a huge section of the book. I mean, it's probably the biggest one.
And in the back of it, it actually had a thing about how to find or play in Living Greyhawk. The very last couple pages of the Gazetteer. And for me, I was working at a bookstore like in 2001 or 2002. Some guys came in to buy some D&D stuff, including this thing. And I was like, Living Greyhawk, what's that? And they pointed me, I was at College Station, Texas. They pointed me towards a student, nerd group who were running Living Greyhawk group games. And then that was it. That's how I found it. So, all right, Jay. So you've got the Keoland up? Or?
Yeah, I moved it back down to the Living Greyhawk campaign. Just
okay.
I'll move it back up to the. I mean, it's huge, and then we have a lot of sub articles for Keoland as well. We have that one with the map. It's available still on the site, right?
Right.
There's a lot of great stuff for it. I know this is Gary's baby since he was doing a lot of the writing for Keoland. So, but. I can't even imagine now, and this is because I live in South Jersey. I've lived here my whole life, everyone, and I didn't play, right? And we talked.
He was right next to a con.
Mm-hmm.
Where was the con?
The con was over at the Philadelphia airport, which is only 6 miles from my house as the crow flies. So, which is crazy. So I can't imagine though. You're saying this, getting New Yorkers with Philly people that hate each other, right? With Western New Yorkers from Buffalo. With Pittsburgh people, wow.
And I'm from Central PA. I live in Gettysburg, so here I was stuck in the middle, and folks on the western side of the state considered me, one of those I-95 guys. And the only word I ever heard from folks in Philly and New York was, "Well, hell, you live in Pennsylvania."
Yeah, I've even heard that term because my ex-wife's family is from Mechanicsburg.
Oh yeah.
Katana, you know how it is with us. You know how it is with us. You live in Philly. You know how we are. We're a bunch of assholes. So,
Here's a story that sort of encapsulates all this.
Yeah.
Right after I joined the Triad, I was invited to one of the conventions that's just across Cherry Hill.
Yeah, that's right.
Cherry Hill, New Jersey, right across the river from Philly, right?
Yeah, I grew up I'm 3 miles from there.
All right, so I went to a convention there, and I walk in, and I'm sort of walking through outside the gaming area. There's the hotel hallway.
Yeah, it was a Crown Plaza, I bet you, off of 70.
Probably.
70,
and so there's people all over the place, like waiting for next games to start, and somebody yelled, "Hey, are you Merwin?" I'm like, "Yeah, nice to meet you." And they're like, "You're an ass clown." No.
Ass clown, that's a South Jersey term.
I love that term.
No, I'm sorry, a no talent ass clown. I have to get it right.
That's even better. I love that term.
And so that was my first going to the metro area to attend a convention. That was my welcome.
It's probably better I wasn't part of it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. And I think that was like done affectionately. I think that was sort of like I hope. I'm going to assume.
Wow.
But a little
early 2000s term, by the way. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh no, I'm familiar with it, and I'm from Texas, but it was something brought down from y'all's region.
Yeah. Wow. Oh man. Yeah. Well, we're all here for it. I guess you get past all that with the Greyhawk, with all the great stuff you guys did, and I remember from that show 3 years ago. You had what 300-400 people at shows at cons. That's a lot.
Mm-hmm. You guys had the crazy population density region,
absolutely.
With New York City and whatnot. So Jay does have the copy of the Kingdom. Oh, sorry.
We ran at some of our regular cons. We were running 18 to 20 tables of slot.
That's great.
And that's in Gettysburg. We were able, being in Gettysburg, we were convenient to a lot of population 4 hours away. So people came, but yeah.
Let's just round that up. 20 tables would be 120 players with 20 dungeon masters. So that becomes 140 people playing at the same time. I mean, that's pretty solid numbers. Impressive. And then you have to take over a hotel ballroom space, multiple rooms to do that.
We were able to do that in Gettysburg as long as we stayed away from tourist season. That was the nice thing. We ended up with great hotels at very, very fair prices because it was during downtime. They were happy to have people, in the beds.
Yeah. One of the first things I did when I joined the trad was I ran a very small convention here in Fredonia, which is a town of 10,000 people. The population doubles when college is in session, that sort of thing. And I rented a hotel space, and I thought I'll just run this for free, basically, little convention. People could come and meet me, and we probably ran 10 tables, which is more than I thought. And a majority of the people were not from New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. People flew up from Texas, from Arizona, from California, from Florida.
Wow.
Just because they could play all of the year one Keoland adventures all at once, at one sitting.
Wow.
And my wife's like, are these people all your friends? And I said, the guys from Buffalo, yeah, I know them, but everybody else, they're from all over the country coming to this little town in the middle of nowhere because they can get all these adventures in. And that's the sort of draw that Living Greyhawk had. Yeah.
I never had any of the interactions that Sean had during my time there. I had a great time hanging out with all the people. Philly folks were good to me. New York folks were good to me. Jersey folks were good to me. Western PA folks were good. Western New York folks were good. Went to a lot of cons before then, so maybe they knew me as a player beforehand. But yeah, had like I said, had some great friends in all of those communities that we got together with, and just
it's very cool.
So let's dive into the MetaWorks, because usually on these shows there's more stuff than we can ever possibly talk about. We're gonna try and do like a high level overview of your favorite MetaWorks, how they tied into the region's plots, which ones maybe were popular, and things of that nature. And as you guys talk, I'll just kind of give asides to the audience about how the mechanics worked or what the circle would allow and not allow, et cetera, et cetera. So which one of you wants to start, or Jay, do you have a question?
Well, I'm looking, or Anna or Mike, because Mike tends to not speak at all during the Living Greyhawk campaign. So let's make Mike. If you got a question, throw it up there.
He has absorbed.
I love sitting back.
So you give a lot of the design here. There's a lot of names, which is great. There's Sam. Sam's name's on here. Dave, your name's in here. It's great. So you have a lot. I'm assuming.
Judy's named there.
Yeah. What an awesome group. So CY598. So this is the last edition, isn't it? 2008 edition.
Yeah.
So some of these people are still involved in Greg Reborn. Tom Garlic, right?
Tom's doing some writing for us and helps us out here and there.
Very cool.
Absolutely. Now, keep in mind, those names that are there are really from all over the 8 years, because a lot of people did a lot of different work. One of the really nice things about this was, and I don't know how it worked in other regions. Obviously, you started with, I'm sure in 2000 with some, with a handful of MetaWorks, but there are so many on here that were developed through play opportunities. I mean, the new Silverdeep is one that we created from a community of that I was a part of creating. It became a settlement for the regulators, and we ended up telling some stories there and putting interactive there. And I'm sure many of the other ones are much the same.
I mean, I didn't work with the MetaOrgs at all, except to pull them either from the community's creative juices or to coordinate to put them in adventures. The two that spring to mind for me, the Dreadwalkers and the Dark Watch were the ones that were. I don't even know if the Dark Watch
isn't on here.
Okay, the
Dark Knights of the Meligary.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah. Knights of the
Oh, there it is. Okay.
So these were the ones that had been created before I was even a Triad member. So they really spoke to the paranoia that Keoland had about magic, especially about darker, necromantic, fiendish sorts of magic. And so that was one of the, I'm not a big lore memorizer, but I'm a big theme player. So I want to play with these themes. And so those were the ones that were drilled into my mind right away, which is these are organizations that the characters can join, but they are not going to truck with dark magic. They're not going to truck with necromancy. And that also captured this tone and this theme of Living Greyhawk as a whole, which is each region's going to be different. So you play in your region, you better be ready to go along with the themes, or at least work within those themes. And then when you go to a different region, you can explore those themes with your character seeing something new. And so the Dark Watch was something that when characters came from outside of Keoland and started creating casting Animate Dead or even Raise Dead, they would catch the eye of these organizations, including some player characters who are like, you don't do that here. And so it was fun, but it was also fraught with a little bit of, if you don't understand that this is these worlds are going to be a little different, these regions are going to be a little different, and you weren't willing to go along and play along with that story, with that narrative, it could cause tension. And
yeah,
so
we had a lot of I don't want to say a lot of issues, but I remember a few issues at conventions with folks from other regions who hadn't been here before, and the Knights of the Watch and the Dark Watch and the Silent Ones, who would occasionally show up at the end of an adventure and say, "Hey, that's wonderful. You found this thing. Thank you for finding that so much for us. We'll take that off your hands." And players are going like, "Huh?" And it's like, no, that's part of the charms of the regional system. I know Tom Garlick tells a story. Him and his buddies went up to Canada. Cat Tusmet, one of those.
Well, Cat or Tusmet, they were both Canada.
What was the one where everybody's LG? So he remembers sitting at a table, and he had done his research before. So he sits at a table, and somebody else from out of region, and he goes up there, and they explain to him why you're doing everything, and here's what you got to go do. And one of these guys from out of region had done his research, asked him, "Oh, that's great. What do we get paid?" And the DM signed off, and not only just chased him away from the table and said, "Thank you, we don't need your help anymore," signed off in his AR so he couldn't play that adventure again, because that was one of the things for that region. You were all lawful good, and you did things because you were heroes, not because you were a murder hobo, which I kind of respect, actually. But anyway, that's some of the every region had its own flavor.
Yeah, it was the brilliant thing about LG. I would hear from people who went to Keoland from Texas and Oklahoma, and they'd come back and talk about what they had experienced, and it's like mind-boggling. Each region just ran with different things from either canon or Living Greyhawk Gazetteer, or just came up with something if there was really nothing about that region much in canon.
So I got a big question here. It's about in depth here. Were the Silent Ones created by someone in Living Greyhawk, then expanded out into general lore, or was it the other way around? Were they already in existence?
I'm fairly sure they already existed.
Okay.
At least they had existed as far as I knew about them. Now I don't know if I don't know if it was in the original box set.
No, I don't think so. At first, I heard of it was in the Living Greyhawk Gazetteer.
Okay.
That's why I think they appeared.
Right. Gary created. Well, I was positive Gary created them. Sam said that Gary did.
Yeah.
But did they first appear here? Is what my question is.
I think so.
I think so.
Did they exist in second edition? Because I don't remember.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. So introduced in LGG. All right. I was just wondering if Gary had them as a concept before, because they kind of made their. And let's wait to talk about them and see if Gary pops on. All right.
Yeah.
All right. I was curious on that. So we have. Go ahead.
I was going to say, it sounds like that they were originally in the Greyhawk Gazetteer. They premiered there. There wasn't anything before that.
Yeah.
It's okay. I got two characters named Poo Poo and Kaka, so we've heard it all here on the stream. So don't worry about it.
Sorry, guys.
No, it's okay, Dave. He's young.
Mm-hmm.
It's all good. So,
Silent Ones were there for a while. I don't know if they were mentioned in first edition or not. It
No,
seems to me, I thought they might have been.
Sam says that they're
somewhere in
purely
that whole
LGG, which
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
they
Okay.
appeared in the
Sam
Living
would
Greyhawk
know.
Gazetteer. So yeah.
So
But that one
let's.
was, hang on a second,
Again, huh?
just one little, the Living Greyhawk Gazetteer was written and published before the Living Greyhawk campaign started, right?
Yep.
Or was it? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
And it was edition neutral because Gary and Mona and crew did not have the third edition rules.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So that's why
Yeah.
there was no crunch in it. So
They were just guessing. They would say this guy's a 15th level fighter because
Mhm.
they knew that the class fighter was not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And they knew alignments weren't going anywhere, and
Yeah.
genders and
Mhm.
human, half orc,
Yeah.
or whatever. But other than that, they didn't. They named one of the DK people like an assassin. They didn't know assassin was going to be a prestige class, if I remember correctly.
Right. Well, that makes total sense.
Yep.
I said total, everyone. I didn't say turtle, so screw you. I have an emote whenever I say my South Jersey accent. They put a turtle up. So,
Yep.
all right. Where do you guys want to start there? So, why don't we start with the Knights of the Watch and Knights of Malgari? So, there's a Dark Knighthood, and the Knights of Watch and Dispatch, which we heard about them in Geoff a little bit, but beyond that, I don't know much of in Keoland. Let's see, Jay. I can go in.
Now you stole my question. I was.
I'm sorry,
But
Anna.
that was great. That was awesome. Yeah,
Okay.
I love it.
The thing that I remember most about both of those groups. Now, the Knights of the Watch was out of Grand March, if I remember correctly. Was the
Yeah,
name.
that's a larger.
Yeah, it's the entire
Meta-
Western
Meta region.
Sheldomar. The entire
Yeah.
Western
Yeah.
Sheldomar.
But I remember being a triad, and honestly, coming aboard in year 5, year 6, not really knowing the backstory to those organizations, and honestly, never having it told to me. I mean, I had players that were integral in developing them, who knew a hell of a lot more than I did, and I couldn't run them properly because there was the little bit in the meta org book, but it didn't really explain what happened, and there were players that were a specific part of that group in creating those groups to do what they did, and both of those groups, as well as the Silent Ones to a lesser extent, almost became at times a minor element of PvP. There was an element in LG of this that, with I think those two groups, the Silent Ones and the Dreadwalkers, if you remember, at the end of the adventure or at the end of the con or whatever it was, you had to write up a report form and turn it in and send it, physically mail it to your contact, your point of contact for that group, which led to a number of interesting off-table, in-character interactions, which when you're sitting there as triad and you don't understand exactly what those organizations are doing, and well, you know what they're doing, you don't have the background for why, it became very hard to adjudicate at times and to deal with that. But
yeah, we would get reports from a character who was the head of or a lieutenant in, say, the Silent Ones or in the Knights of the Malgari, saying, we witnessed this character, and they would write the name of the character who they were sitting with at this convention. We saw this character animate dead. That's a death penalty in Keoland, so we should, exactly. So we should do something about that.
Tattletales.
I love it.
That's a new. I never heard of that.
Because we're not allowed to do player versus player in Living Greyhawk without some serious hey, this is going to happen. Triad's present.
Yeah, and so that's why we had this system of you can't do anything at the table, but you can. And then as triads, we could ask the character who did the thing, hey, if you come back to Keoland, you have a death warrant on your head. So it's not going to be player versus player. It's going to be triad taking your character. Now, if you want to do this thing, if you want to, and we could do whatever we wanted, essentially, we could work with that player and say, spend 10 time units, go on a special mission, and then we'll do this. And then your character could come back with these stipulations. So you could really get down to the nitty-gritty and have fun with individual players or with groups of players to do things like that. And that's when everyone is part of the storytelling machine and everyone's bought into it, it's the best.
That's when it becomes living.
Exactly. That's the living part.
Awesome. And nobody in region had any issues with it. They were familiar with what happened. They knew, they understood. Really, 95% of the problems, if not more, were people who were coming in. They were in whatever town they were for a business trip, and they planned some LG, but they didn't do their research on what the region was like. Mm-hmm. That was really where most of those types of things came from.
All right, so I have an observation here. Every time I see a region, I want to know what is unique. And here is my unique take on you, the motto for a group. I don't recall seeing a motto on other groups and other regions. So here, the Haven, the Village of, we are the oppressed, but we will no longer be repressed. Right, Casey? Did we have mottos in other regions published?
I think some of them probably did, but we just glossed over it. But it certainly wasn't very common if they did have.
Yeah,
so this is an example of a meta org that came from the players. Look
at that heraldry, Anna.
The Triad had nothing to do with this. The players got together and said, we are half orcs, or we are of different species that are looked down upon in Keoland. Keoland is like 80% human,
right?
And there's not necessarily a bunch of trust of.
There he is.
And so they said we want to create our own town. And we said, okay, go ahead, create your own town, create your own meta org. So this was something the players did, and we read through. Then adventures started happening in some of these areas that the players created. And the people that created this village could write their own adventure. What happens when you come to this village? And as long as the Triad read it over and approved of it, it became living, another living aspect of Living Greyhawk. And it was, when it works, it's the best.
So tell people about this settlement.
It's half elves and half orcs too. It's not just half orcs.
Right.
Half breeds, yep.
Wow.
And they hated dwarves. You walked into the tavern there, and they had several dwarves' beards tagged up behind the bar, nailed up.
And then, of course, we had the dwarven settlement.
Behind that.
Yeah, then we had the dwarven settlement, and so then there became adventures about the tension between these two settlements, and And
let's face it, this Living Greyhawk, it was nothing that was. It was all being done by volunteers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there were literally hundreds and hundreds of adventures created by volunteers, let alone the interactives and everything that happened. So this was a great hook to be able to get people involved. Hey, we created this thing. Now we can write adventures in there. We can develop it. Right. And it's a really neat thing to hang your hat on. And a lot of these folks who started in LG, Sean, Teos, many of these names we mentioned are still involved.
Yeah.
In the gaming community. Dave Christ, and the list goes on and on.
I mean, Ron Lundeen is writing 6th edition. Mona and Bullman, etc. I plan to do a future show that is the alumni of Living Greyhawk who've gone on to be in the gaming space, as a career. So that's definitely a future topic. I've begun talking. I forget multiple people. I think Sean. You said you'd be interested in that kind of thing, and sure. Greg Marks. Mm-hmm. We've been kicking around the idea that Winter Fantasy is where a lot of these people physically go to and are a little less stressed than, say, PaizoCon or Gen Con, et cetera, et cetera. So that's something I'll be looking forward to. Try and plan.
So I got a comment on this. Citizens, our people have earned the right to be called residents of Haven, any non-dwarf race. They become a resident. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And it's neat. Your book, you have the Meta Org narrative, and then you have the Meta Org adventure record.
Yeah.
Whereas, we kept them separate. We had a book that was all the narratives, and then we had a book that was all adventure records were just PDFs that you would download. From our website.
Going to have a field day. There are a ton of heraldry in here.
Yes, I haven't seen them.
That has not been shared anywhere. This is awesome.
Yeah.
And that stuff looks good.
Yeah, I think probably Judy Jr.
Judy did it, okay.
May have created the template at least.
Yeah.
That I mean, it
I've
could have
seen
been somebody else.
Some of the heraldry, some of it, but not all
Not
of it.
all
I
of
think
it, yeah,
there's some new
and
ones.
we tried to get Judy to join us, but she's got a
Wacky.
usually an unusual work schedule and
Yeah.
can be difficult to get response from her as a result. So we'll keep trying her for future
They're
shows.
in the Living Greyhawk Journal Gazette, all those, Sam? All of them? All right, I didn't know that.
I think I got most of the
heralds.
heraldry.
The heralds are, okay.
Yeah,
all right.
I think I got most of the heraldry, but there might be some new ones in there. We'll see. Yeah,
Mike Merles, right? He was Keelan Triad?
Yes, he was.
Yeah,
he was one of the first ones.
Oh, you guys should have. I've harassed the hell out of him getting.
Jay, go poke him on Twitter right now.
No, not the very minute.
Yeah.
No, but I should. Actually, so all right, let's flip to number 60 on page 63. You actually have a meta org for Salt Marsh. That's cool.
Oh.
Yeah, wow. Salt Marsh, the town. Mike Schley. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Mike did a lot of stuff down there.
Oh, that's right. He lives in Philly.
Yep, and he had
that's cool.
He had some of the most interesting interactives that we've done there. He had a group called with the Chocolatiers, and they were just as it sounds, except they were slightly twisted, more like a Gene Wilder.
Willy Wonka
and Willy Wonka type way, yeah. And there was another one that was a bakery and things like that he did. He did things that were slightly twisted, which was always lovely. Wow. I love to see that.
Yep.
That is
awesome. Saw Mike this past week, or not this past con up at Mepicon. Came up with his kids and didn't play any of our stuff, but had a chance to talk with them for a while. Again, another one of those great guys.
I guess I got to start going to Scranton there, Dave.
I tell you, it's a great con. Mepicon is a wonderful con. They've been around for 20, 21, 22 years. They do it twice a year. It's really just, it's a great con to bring your family to. They got stuff for kids of all ages. It's one of our favorite cons, period. Always has been.
Okay.
They've always had great people there. That's the thing. We sit here and talk, and names keep coming up like Mike, and we just go, "Holy shit!" Man.
Yeah, I'm shocked. Mike Schley. I mean, Mike Schley's a big name. So I as far as in map making, and he did the Salt Marsh maps.
No, that's a different Mike Schley.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Yes.
My gosh, because he lives in Philly. Mike Schley. Wow.
Yeah.
So
that's right. No, those are two different.
Oh my gosh! I was going to say his name was spelled wrong on here. All right.
Yeah. His name is spelled right there.
But it's not. Yeah, it's SHL. All right. Okay.
Yeah. He's one of the half of the people in LG who were involved who were lawyers.
Okay.
Yep. Not rules lawyers or
real lawyers.
Real lawyers. Yeah.
So, speaking of that, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
You go ahead and talk about the Salt Marsh thing. My point can wait.
No. Because trust me,
we'll
segue. So
speaking about rules lawyers, I saw Sam mention in the chat that one of the reasons these meta orgs became so important for rules reasons is because prestige classes in third edition, you might need to have done a certain thing. There might be a actual role playing prerequisite to take a prestige class. So these meta orgs could sort of be the template to say, well, I have a tribe that I protect as a tribal protector prestige class. So if I join this, that unlocks that for me. So that's one of the reasons why these also were rules documents as much as role playing or story driven documents.
Yeah, absolutely. The circle, the RPGA created rules saying like these prestige classes can be available freely. Yep. These we think you should monitor more closely, and these we really don't want you to allow because of the flavor of Greyhawk or whatever in the game. And then each region could take those rules, and then I'm just trying to look for an example. But in the Salt March Adventure Record, it's not prestige classes, but there's equipment that you can gain access to. So in Living Greyhawk, you couldn't just go and buy the arms and equipment guide for third edition and then say, hey, I've bought flotation bags so that when I'm on a boat adventure, if I go overboard, I'm assuming you just pull the string and they inflate, because otherwise, why would they exist? But if you join the town of Salt Marsh Meta Org in Keoland and became a citizen there, a town person, you could buy that item. And that would be legit. It would be, because there's a paper trail. You see this adventure record, they kind of moved off of it, but it tracks your gold pieces and experience points and things of that nature. So I'm just looking at this, and this actually segs into my point, John and Dave, in that I'm currently running the 4th year of my 5e Ghosts of Saltmarsh game. And I've kind of moved it to where it's mostly set in Seaton now for various reasons. I fleshed out Seaton for a living, oh my God, Christoph's going to kill me, an Orth Journal issue a while back. But looking at this, I could dig out my old arms and equipment guide and let my 5e PCs purchase things like, oh, here's a boot sheet. How much does it cost? 3rd edition and 5th edition pricing is going to be identical. It's not like Pathfinder 2e, where they went silver standard, right? So anyway, that's just really cool. And did you do any other towns like Saltmarsh like this? Did you do Seaton or Gradsul or anywhere else?
Doesn't appear to.
No, not as a group. The only ones were like Clan Stonecrow, the Dwarven one, Haven, were tied to towns, New Silverdeep. And those were all developed by, players. I don't think there's anything else that was set up there like that in that manner.
So,
and keep in mind, Saltmarsh in 3 and 3.5 LG was greatly different than what's in the book. It's the Saltmarsh book 5e. It's a much smaller town, and I know we took a lot of our inspiration from that. From the original U1, U2, U3.
Right.
And I know there were NPCs from those books that were used in interactives in Saltmarsh. And
very cool.
Adventures as well.
Yeah. All right, so
and Saltmarsh appears in the 3.5 Dungeon Master's Guide too. It has an entire chapter about Saltmarsh as a community, right? It's got like 100 locations, if I remember correctly, buildings. It's got a ton of NPCs. And none of that stuff made it into the Ghosts of Saltmarsh 5e book. It just completely, it's like Wizards of the Coast was like, whatever,
Well,
we're just going to start from scratch.
We were planning adventures there, working on the old stuff. We had no idea that this was going to be in the Dungeon Master's Guide 2 for 3rd edition. And all of a sudden, boom, the book comes out. There it is. And I don't even remember if I was on the Triad at that point, but people were upset because it was... no warning at all. It was just, here you go.
Well, the same thing happens with Age of Worms Adventure Path. When it gets published, they had never consulted with the Bandit Kingdoms or anyone else, even though Eric Bona obviously was, the RPGA guy for Living Greyhawk, because they didn't want to deal with IUs. And they didn't want it to tie into Living Greyhawk. No, I mean, they did not reach out to us and say, hey, just a heads up, because it wasn't, Age of Worms is not Living Greyhawk, but it came out while Living Greyhawk was the core campaign.
Eric
to me, that was just weird.
Eric has said multiple times on this show he didn't want to deal with you. Just kidding.
That was one of the things with LG as an admin. You had what I lovingly call the Book of the Month Club. And, it was a marketing arm for Wizards. And obviously, that's what it was meant to do. So, hey, get what you can out of this book into your campaign. And, make it available on ARs and let people push it around. And then
there's a whole other show there. Yeah.
And the complete lack, I don't want to say complete lack, but the virtual lack of play testing and thought how things would work together, which led to some really stupid things. I mean, I wasn't involved in this one, but I remember being told about an interactive cross-regional, I think it was up in Kett, where there was like an 8 or 16 armed lizardman or Sawagan suspended from a ceiling, held up there by chains, who did something ridiculous like 88 attacks per round, and it was all legal. And that was, it became admins and the authors to see what the players would come to the table with and go, okay, well, I got more tools in my toolbox than they do. So let's get really crazy.
Oh my God.
It was the arms race that unfortunately Living Greyhawk fell into. But we that's a whole nother show in its own right. And
good times.
So as far as laying claim, Gary says he created the heralds Knights of the Dark Watch and the Dreadwalkers. Also, Sam says Gary created the NAW, National Academy of Wizardry, and the Silent Ones, right? So there you go. So that's all Mr. Julian there, and from there you guys developed it into. Let's take a look at the National Academy of Wizardry. I'm interested, and they're called the NAW. That's pretty neat. that's cool. That is cool. And then there's military Kyoish. But there's a lot of detail. Oh, so the oaths alone in the Knights of the Watch are impressive because none of that existed in the original glossography where they talk about the Knights of the Watch back in the day. So you guys really expanded on everything, which is fantastic. Some really
the players like to be a part of things. As we found out, not only just like the regulators and their local gaming group and friends they hung out with, and they could go to a con and they could have shirts made and they could sit at a table and be known as these group of people, but also to be a part of an organization to tied into that. It just immersed them further into the world. And it gave them the opportunity to do some things that, you wouldn't otherwise be able to do. It gave access. And like I said, oftentimes it gave you, gave you the opportunity to secretly turn your players in that you played with if they did something wrong.
Yeah, I love that.
Magic made through noble deeds is the motto of this group here, and you got some sponsors. You got some NPC set, which is great. Even a half elf from the Axewood, which is cool. So that covers that and the Duchy of Ulick, and really lots and lots of detail. One thing I've noticed is, the abilities are only here, and that's why they attach these, Casey. It's not in the writing.
I know.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, so it's not
right, but normally they're not. Well, not normally. For most of the regions we've talked to, these aren't in the document themselves. They're just a separate PDF where you would say, okay, I'm joining the Keoland Duelist Society. I need to download this PDF and bring it to my next game, and the dungeon master, the judge, will help me fill it in completely, so that it's legal and notated and signed out. I mean, we were notarizing shit for Dungeons and Dragons, basically.
I'm guessing it was probably set up this way so that saved the point of contact at least several emails. It's it's there. Go get it. Because there was nothing secret about them.
Yeah.
Right.
That's cool.
And this template was used. This was released to all the regions, and it would be updated each year. And it looks like each region could put on their own crest, in the upper right. But the circle would release here's your Meta Org AR template for the year and things like that.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at the Duelist Society. I just searched for the word Keoland, and it pops up under one of the military guys.
Alex.
But it didn't pop up under the Duelist Society, which I found interesting. But I'm sure that you probably had some players that ran with a Keoland and kind of duelist build, I would assume.
I'm assuming that's why the Meta-Org existed.
Yeah, that was kind of my go-to in Living Greyhawk. All my PCs were tied to Keoland in some way, shape, or form. Just that's what I gravitated towards.
Yep.
So, what is Is it Leon Brock? Or did I say that right?
Lion Break.
Lion Break. See, I was really off on that. I thought it was French, but I botched that with my.
It's just part of the Keoland military. There's a variety of Kewish military, if I remember correctly. Instead of just everything getting lumped under Kewish military, kind of separated them out, which is, again, the National Academy of Wizardry also worked as part of the army, if you will, when they needed it and so forth. So,
old soldiers,
if I remember correctly.
That's an awesome. Notice a lot of lawful neutral characters in here. So unbending. Yeah, it's key. Is it? I always thought Keoland was more lawful good. Is it now? I could be wrong.
I always got the feeling that just the whole tie-in with that dark magic, with the Dreadwood, with the Rushmores, it sort of corrupted everybody just a bit. It took dealing with evil sort of took a toll. So some of the characters sort of tended toward evil themselves. They had to become evil to fight evil, was sort of the attitude that I saw.
Okay.
At least in the background material.
Yeah. There was a lack of trust between House Rolla and House Nahili. There was a lack of trust between the houses of House Nahili and within the houses. There was a lack of trust from the Kiwi citizens to anybody who used magic. So there was just, I think, some trust issues there. Not to mention the various thieves guild that worked within Keoland, as well as out of region stuff. So yeah, I always thought it was a little more neutral. Hey, we're going to follow the law, but
Okay.
we're going to follow the law to the letter.
Let me go down here. So we had someone who really wanted to know. There's one Sam did there. Here's Shadow Dark Guild. So I'm working my way down to the Stargazers, which someone wanted to know about. The Shadow Dark is a guild born from darkness and death. Deep from the Keoland. Shadow Dark.
Yeah, I think the shield pretty much says it all there.
Yeah.
The crest is pretty. If you see somebody marching down the road with that on their shield, you might look twice.
I'm reading quickly to see if they were allied with anything outside of Keoland, or if they were in.
All right.
Sam,
anytime you put a skull on a shield, it immediately pings me for IUs, but that's just.
I don't see it though in here. I don't see that there are IUs tied.
Because really, IU shouldn't be dealing with Keoland, right? He's too far away.
Not necessarily.
But I mean, he didn't have a major plot in canon with him.
Yeah.
That I can recall.
There were also, like, as I'm looking at that now, it's bringing back to me. There were some larger cities in Keoland, not quite as large as Greyhawk City, but like Gradzul we called it the New York City of Keoland. Right? It wasn't the capital. The capital's in the middle, Neil Dra, but it was the large city on the coast. And so the Thieves Guild from Gradzul is going to be different than the Thieves Guild, and how the Thieves Guild will work in different areas. Gradzul had its own, they had the Sea Mages, which is different from the National Academy of Wizardry. Different focus, different beliefs, different alignments,
Shadow Dark, if I remember correctly, was much more spy oriented. Think of it more as James Bond and Mission Impossible. Looking at the shield, the heraldry, it really doesn't match what I remember of the group. They were information brokers more than anything else. There was one in Jeff, I can't remember their name, was much the same way these secret orgs.
Might be a PR value. You scare, instead of being really scary, you put out a scary logo, so to speak. That kind of intimidation by design, so to speak.
Yeah, and it just looks like it's an elite group of thieves. Prestige class, Master of Masks.
Well, look, Dread Pirate from CV would have been what? Complete.
Complete Adventurer.
Complete Adventurer was probably CV.
Was complete something else.
Yeah, they had so many books in that era. So
they may have been 3.0 books, not 3.5 books.
Yeah, but they released.
This is year 8. So, you would have updated that.
Oh yeah, that's 3.5 definitely.
Yeah. What was CV? Maybe it was Complete Adventure.
Yeah, because I think there was something else with CA, so they couldn't use. I may be wrong. Okay. It was 20 years ago. I
someone Google it and put it in the chat. But that's cool. Yeah, I remember we used Spymaster a lot in the BK because Spymaster was insane. It gave you the multiple identities and crazy disguise checks and
Complete ventriloquist. I'm not sure about that, Elron.
No,
that's funny though.
But Casey, you need to track down one of these translation sheets so we know the code sheets for it. Yeah.
Well, it probably says earlier in this document. I would suspect that there's a guide to the abbreviation somewhere. I would hope so. Otherwise, these were Living Greyhawk standard abbreviations, and there was probably a Living Greyhawk document all the players would have and could refer back to. But yeah.
So the Stargazers seemed here we go from the request out there. Function somewhat like mercenaries with a more honorable bent, typically donating half their profits to charitable organizations. So it looks like they are, we read the stars to find hope. There you go. And let's see what abilities they have here.
Huh.
Yep. All right, cool. So they actually have Disciple of Selene, Champion of Luna. So they're talking about the moons here, which is cool. And yep. Our initiates of the Stream Mercenary Company, learning the rituals and methodology of this organization.
And this is stuff people can still data mine, because audience has been asking, can we share these documents? My non-lawyer opinion is we can't share adventures. They're copyright. Either Wizards of the Coast or the author owns the adventures this day. But the MetaOrg documents were fan created, we as Triad members, freely disseminated, and allowed to be disseminated by the RPGA. So it is my opinion that we can share the MetaOrg stuff. We cannot share the adventures.
Yeah.
Right.
I believe.
So, but it's up to each Triad to decide how they feel about that,
And people who are no longer there, and in the case of Keoland, probably a dozen to a dozen and a half, maybe 20 people who were involved in putting it all together. I mean, you look at our MetaOrgs there, and most of those, when you see the point of contact, those were people that were involved in creating them in most instances.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
for the BK, I've just taken upon myself and been like, I was involved in this. I think we can share it, but it's still a murky issue, but I think it's less worrisome. But my point is, if people get a hold of these things, this is some good stuff you could mine no matter what edition you're playing.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, 100%.
Like, I totally wish I had thought to ask for this when I started my Ghosts of Saltmarsh campaign 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I've kind of recreated like one or two things. I was like, oh, there should be sea mages.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of thing.
Greyhawk Reborn picked up 15 years after LG. And we use LG mostly as canon, but we won't let that canon get in the way of telling a good story. But I mean, I sit there and especially early on, looked back over documents and adventures and pulled NPCs and stuff out. Sean mentioned Shellswake. I know I checked with him early in our campaign to make sure we could use some of those guys, and Stokedor and I forget the other guy's name.
Jarmark was his brother.
Jarmark and Stokedor became very involved in a story arc that we were doing, and we wrote some stories revolving around Kevin's adventures with Pemlo.
Pemlo, yeah.
So I mean, we actually data mined some of that. We checked with Kevin. I mean, we got his okay to do that. We had actually contacted Wizards to see if we could do some more, and tried contacting them several times, and all we kept getting was no's, which is no surprise.
No. Interesting. So, Twofold Path. Here's another one. This seems like a monastic monk one, which is cool. So, yep. Let me see what abilities they have here. Yep, Butterfly Sword, Capsule Retainer. Yep, so that's Tiger Claws.
I think that was the obligatory monk.
Someone is coming on to comment.
Oh.
Here he comes.
There we go.
Oh no!
Great.
Gary
Here
the
he
Faceless
comes. Hey, Amy. Gary.
Hello.
Howdy.
And hello, Amy.
Hey, guys.
Silent one mug. Hello.
Hey, Gary.
Hi, Gary.
He's green.
Get your silent one mug at Noble Dwarf and benefit Anna.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. Absolutely. That's really cool. That's awesome. So, what are you thinking about this conversation tonight here? You got to bring back some memories, huh?
Gary, did we lose you?
No. Hold on, let me kill the other.
Kill them all.
Twitch stream. Or mute it. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
we're good. We're good. You're good. This is cool. Did not realize all the stuff that all the meta orgs that you had pre-created and that they ran with them. So if we run to up, like, let's run up top here and go back to these. So the Knights of the Malgari is your initial creation there, and then they ran with it, and which is awesome. So why the split? So I'm going to ask all three of you why the split from the Knights of the Watch for this. What do you think?
Well, I'm gonna let Gary take that because
Sorry, I think my audio was all screwed up. I couldn't hear you guys.
Yeah. Why the split for the Knights of the Malgari because of the badness of the Rushmores?
Oh, you're assuming they split from the Watch.
Oh, it's the other way around.
No, the Dark Watch predates the Watchers.
Oh,
I did not know that.
They
That's
were
cool.
they were on the scene when Vecna's tower was still smoking
Okay.
900 years ago. So, yeah, and the Knights of the Watch were more developed as a northern frontier protection force that was going to keep the Iridians and the Ketites out of the Sheldamar Valley.
Yeah, that makes total sense then.
Yeah, that's something I was told as I came on Triad that where they came from and what their real mission was, and yeah, it's all protecting about Vecna.
What is hilarious is that a couple of years after this was published, I can't remember what studio published a video game called Dark Watch, and it really was close to what the character was supposed to be like.
Nice.
An undead hunter and a
Very cool. Anna, is this heraldry used anywhere?
I'm not sure. I have to look at that document afterwards and see.
It's got a lot of the
I think I've seen that, but I'm not sure it made it onto the map. I think it's one of the pool. I have a bunch of things piled up for Keoland, so I need to do an overhaul of Keoland to go in, because it's been kind of on the sidelines for me. I haven't dug into it, but I'm going to, for my next campaign, I plan to be an Elven campaign, and I plan to be on that side of the Lort Mills, and maybe even go into the Vale of the Mage. So there's a lot of heraldry and stuff to develop for that. So I'm definitely going to take a look at all of these and make updated versions of them. So yeah,
that's awesome.
So they will come. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Because if it's just me, Casey, the same thing, and Mike, I'd never even heard this until tonight.
No, exactly. This I've heard the name, but that's it.
Great. There's a knighthood that was there, thwarting Vecna back in the day. I did not. Should I have known that in a publication there, Gary, somewhere?
No, you wouldn't. Remember, Keoland was probably the blankest slate in the 1983 box set. I mean, Gygax had almost no lore there. We got a few. Huge. Yeah. We got a few tidbits in the GDQ 1 through 7 series. And after that, it was all, making inferences and creating material to fill out the rest of the area. So in some sense, this triad got to play with all new stuff that really wasn't, any Gygaxian legacy.
There is a wealth of information on Cannon Fire that I referred to oftentimes. There's more to that story of the Dark Watch and Vecna and their ties specifically to House Nahili. You go back, Sam Weiss.
Yeah, a lot of that credit
good stuff
has to go to Sam Weiss, who, we spent endless Thursdays discussing Keoland and the Sheldamar Valley and debating issues and developing ideas, and he created a bunch of timelines and other material that I think are almost must-reads to get a full picture of the region.
And you're talking about the IRC Gray Chats.
That's right.
Yeah, on Thursday
Keoland
nights.
would look entirely different without the groundwork laid by Sam to develop it and to put a lot of stuff into the background and stuff. A lot of the stuff I didn't know about even when I was on Triad until I went further back and started just having some fun poking through the
so
site.
Maybe I missed the beginning, so help me figure things out. So was there a triad of 3 established initially? And what were you guys told and what were you given?
None of us were on that.
Sean was by himself, right, for a while.
Yep.
Yeah, I came in after the first year was complete, or at the very end of the first year. So I just went to Sam, and Sam handed me, his plans and all of the plot threads that he saw playing out or will be playing out. And all I did was try to turn some great world building into great adventures, because you can have the best world, but if the adventures where the characters are interacting with it aren't great, then it's lost. So that was my job as far as I was concerned. Let's take this great world and let's put it into action in adventures.
And I don't think a lot of our LG players understood what was going on early on, and justifiably so. If you're talking about groups that are political powers, the Nihili, the Rolla, they don't care about adventurers. You got to be pretty high level before you get involved in their machinations, and you would earn any trust of them. So I think there was a lot going on in the background that players were wondering about, never got introduced to until later on in year 4 and 5, after Sam had left. Christian had probably come aboard, and you had come aboard to start picking up some of those threads, Sean. And but I think it was all laid out there. I think Sam had a master plan. Like I said, I don't think Sam ever got the credit he deserved for creating what he created.
It's true.
And I'd love to sit down and have a chat with Sam sometime and get a better idea what he was thinking. I had the opportunity at GearyCon. You mentioned that down at the Philly airport. I forget who that was. Had the opportunity a couple of times. I was just a player that I didn't have anything. Just to kind of grab him. I don't want to say grab him, but have a couple of conversations, and I just walked away going, "Wow, this is a lot deeper than I'd ever thought. What a way to tell a story." I'll stop.
No, that was very great to hear you give Sam that love. And and I have a question for Sam real quick. Was Sam Triad in year 0? Was he part of the process where the RPGA said, okay, this region, it's now your turn to pick, because it was based on RPGA play numbers, and regions were making the decisions, right? Like we'll be Joff,
Sam
and
says
we'll
yes.
be
He says yes.
That's very cool. Sam, you need to figure out the technology so we can have you on the show
exactly.
to talk about year -1, year 0, etc.
I'm also amazed that Sean had to take over those 3 big states all by himself.
Yeah, we're talking about that, and he said there was a lot of clashes of personalities from Philly to South Jersey to New York to Western PA.
What? Those are the nicest people in the country.
Yeah, we heard some awesome stories.
I think the first 20 minutes were the region's quirks being discussed.
You have this wonderful volunteer organization, and when you consider the hours of enjoyment of play that people had with this and the number of volunteers involved, it's absolutely amazing. And to sit there and to be a part of it, and to be a triad member and things like that, I equate it to like a sports team. To take over as coach, there's got to be a little ego. There's got to be, at some point in time, you're thinking, shit, I can do this better. And I think there was a lot of that. We had a lot of great people doing a lot of great things.
So here's a question I always wanted to ask you guys. Were there ever any metrics developed so that you guys would know what was popular, what was being eaten up by the fans, and
if there was, they were never shared with us.
Okay. Do you mean adventures, Gary, or meta orgs?
Everything, all aspects of the campaign. How many people participated, how much churn there might have been in a region, how popular the modules were. Were the modules optional? Did you have to play every single module in a particular year? No.
So the only metric I know that they could have even tracked was you had to input, everyone had an RPGA number. And for certain years, now I may be even going forward into later campaigns, but you were supposed to type in the numbers of everybody who played an adventure. And so there was a way to track. Now, I don't know if they ever used that information. I don't know if it was even looked at, but it wasn't done in a way that made it clear how many people were playing, other than you look out at the ballroom of the hotel and you realize there are 30 tables playing. So
it might have been 8 years too early, because once we had smartphones and all this technology to track everything, it would have been a lot. I don't know what they're doing now. Maybe there's some of that, but
so like with Pathfinder Society, the judges will report the table, or at least they did last time I played 8-10 years ago, and they would report everyone's, and it goes right into your paizo.com. I think for your Pathfinder Society characters have kind of online tracking, and I'm sure that lets them do some data analytics, and maybe they see, like, people can probably leave feedback on adventures these days, but during Living Greyhawk, you could have entire groups just playing in their mom's basement, and the Triads would never know those people existed. They could be happily non-engaged with the region on the Yahoo groups, which was our main form of digital communication back then. It could just be getting the adventures by reaching out to the Triad, or getting them from the various websites, if that was legal to share back then. And they could just play. And then if they were filling out the adventure records properly, they could show up at a convention. No one would know who the hell they were, but they've still been playing in your region for 5 years.
Yeah, but you had to order your adventures from WotC. You had to have a location. Now, certainly you could falsify what you were doing, but you pretty much had to have a public location, because they had to be open to the public. And then at the end of the con, I mean, I remember spending hours and hours and hours reporting those tables. End of every table, you had a winner. You had the die bump certs, if you remember those, and you had to figure out who was the best player
in the early years. Yeah,
and then you had to turn everything in. As the con coordinators at the end. So you're reporting every table, every person who sat at the table with every RPG number. Biggest I ever heard was towards the end of year 5. I think it was 20 or 22,000 people worldwide playing.
Yeah.
But in terms of getting individual stuff broken down, they never did that. And to be honest with you, again, it's the vast majority of them were volunteers. I guess Circle members had some type of remuneration.
They had a stipend of about $1,000 a quarter. I think Britt has told me.
Not near enough.
That's peanuts. Even 20 years ago, that was peanuts.
Yeah. So I just don't think there was time during all creating all of these adventures, the story arcs, running the adventures, editing them, game days, conventions, to be able to pull that other information out that should have been accessible. And Chris Tollock was the only guy at Wizards handling it. So you only had one.
Well, and that was after he left High Folk to take that job.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a High Folk Triad who became the I Use Circle member, and then he took that job. And I've been working Greg Marks hard to get Tulloch on a show, but because Wizards of the Coast is kind of PR adverse right now for various unnamed reasons.
Yeah.
We won't go further into that. But the micro tracking, like a convention. So an adventure would get released for convention play, typically first. And then a month later, it became available for play at your friendly local game store, your FLGS. And then a month later, it became available for home game ordering. And the home games are what I'm referring to as when we had no idea if people were playing in their mom's basement. They could order the adventure for a home game, and as long as they had a registered address with the RPGA of Houston, Texas, they could, or Oklahoma, they could order the Bandit Kingdoms adventures, use meta regional adventures, and core adventures, and we would have no idea that they were playing in our region. And they were happy to do that. And we also had people who posted every day on the Yahoo groups, who played every adventure. And Gary, the adventures didn't have to be played in order, although we would recommend it most of the time. The adventures were live for two years. So if a year 1 adventure, you could play it through December 31st of year 2. So that was 2001, 2002. So once year 2 started, you could only play year 2 adventures, or excuse me, once year 3 started, you could only play year 2 and year 3 adventures, and so on and so forth through the campaign. This allowed people to kind of go back a little bit and catch up on the plots. And looking at it now with how Pathfinder Society does it, it's probably a mistake to have ever cut off the older adventures just to have that content available for new people to play. But they also didn't monetize the campaign at all. They thought they could use it to sell books. Oh, we're going to make centaurs legal if you own Races of Stone or whatever the hell the book the centaur was in. And they would make goofy ass decisions like that you're like, we don't want centaurs in the Bandit Kingdoms unless they're native to the Felry Forest, and they would never leave the friggin' forest. Wizards of the Coast told the Circle, we want to sell this book. You guys need to make centaurs a legal race.
It was still pre-digital age before VTTs and all that, so they were still not.
I thought I remembered early on that there was very early on in my play experiences that there might have been like a $1.99 charge for each adventure downloading, but it didn't last long. My kind of feeling and what I got from chatting with other folks through the years, they wanted to do a Living City type of thing. They thought, what to do. Well, we got Greyhawk sitting here doing nothing. And if it goes belly up, it goes belly up. Who cares? And Greyhawk, unknown to them, had a large base of people who were interested in it. They put it out there, and I think it just grew by leaps and bounds. I mean, when you have something, again, come back to that volunteer base who created all of this stuff, that shows the charm and the staying power of Greyhawk. I think it just grew faster, larger, bigger than anything Wizards ever expected. They were never prepared to handle it, what could have been done with it. Looking back on it, there could have been ways to monetize it had the technology been there. But man, it just, it went through the roof because I don't think they expected it to do anything. I expected, let's try something here. And Living City was out there and did this. Let's try this. And if it doesn't work, who cares? It's just Greyhawk. And then it's like, oh, Greyhawk worked. Great. 4E's coming out. Let's finally do Living Forgotten Realms because that's what we really like. At my opinion.
So let's get back to a couple of these. Why not? Right? We got another 20 minutes. Sound good? So Gary, while you're on here, tell us about what your thoughts were on the Sea Mages.
I like the idea that Keoland had an active navy, that they were the first people to go out there, sail around Hitmonaland, map these distant shores, and I thought, there's no way that if you had magic in a world that you wouldn't employ it for the purpose of successfully sailing and avoiding dangers and monsters and such. So yeah, you would have naval officers that are essentially sea mages who were there just to protect the ship with their magical abilities and would specialize in magic that would make that more successful. Because their enemies in Port Tolly were certainly using every trick in the book to win sea battles against the Kewish Navy.
Did Troy take any advice from you when he was creating his class for his publication?
Oh no, I mean, I'm not a crunch guy.
Okay.
So I'm happy to hear
You're
whatever
a background story guy. Okay.
Yeah, whatever somebody thinks is good for that edition, I'm
cool.
I'm good with too.
I was just curious because it's a great point. Tim has one too, and they have nothing to do with each other, Troy's and Tim's, but we have such great talent out there. And let's see what powers they have here. Wow. Okay. Long breath. I guess. Yeah. So I guess that's like airy water back in the day. Lots of stuff here. Flotation bags. That's cool. Yeah. Some neat things. Excellent.
See, we were talking about the initials earlier. CA would have been Complete Arcane, probably. And then CV was Complete Adventurer. There were probably 5 books, I'm guessing. They probably had Arcana.
Yeah.
Complete Faith, maybe, was CF, if I'm remembering correctly. I'm trying to think what the Thieves one was.
Complete Divine was one book.
Complete Divine. Thank you. Mm-hmm. The Thief one, or Bard Rogue one.
That was the Complete Adventurer.
That was Complete Adventurer. Okay, thank you. Yeah. And then I'm trying to think what the Fighter one would have been then.
Complete.
No,
hang on a second. I have them.
Anyway.
That was,
A in EG was Arms and Equipment Guide. ROW was Races of the Wild, which me as a LG Rules rules nerd will point out that Races of the Wild was actually banned from the campaign in like year 3 or 4 when we converted from 3.0 to 3.5. But oh well, whatever. Thistledown padded. That sounds
The
cool.
fighters were complete warrior.
Of course. Thank you, man.
Yep.
Yeah. But you couldn't take the sudden still feat without something that gave you access to it. So it was a good mechanic reason as well as role-playing reason to join these sea mages. So very cool.
Yeah, and it was complete arcane. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Military Kiwish royal
and complete divine and yep.
So
yeah, this is the only mention of Keoland in here. I was asking Gary about that in the chat earlier.
Yeah, there's another reference in the city of Kryalor. Keoland fought a famous duel against one of the Sul migrants who escaped the Imperium. So they recreate that every year in a tournament.
Is that in the LGG or is that the Living Greyhawk Journal?
One of them. it all blurs together. I can't.
That's fair. That's fair. That was a pretty mean question on my part.
Well, the thing is, all that material for the Living Greyhawk Journal #1 was originally meant to be in the Living Greyhawk Gazetteer, but when we were fighting the page count, we had to decide. Eric pulled his Nyrond material. I had to pull the Keoland material out. Eric said there'd probably be a place for it. We weren't going to just toss it, but we obviously love to have had it in there as detailed as the Great Kingdom and other places. But but at least it made it in there somehow.
And that's why that article in LGJ #1 is one of the best articles in the journal, is because you wrote it professionally, thinking it might make it into the LGG.
Yeah, it was definitely culled from that material. And there's other material that is on the cutting room floor, but I just, that's many hard drives ago.
Oh, I have it.
and
I have the unprinted, expanded LGG stuff.
But you can't have the stuff that we never put in there because we knew it wouldn't make it in. So we wanted we had an entire section on artifacts. We had an entire section on Beyond the Flannis.
I got an old shot.
These sections did not even have a chance of making it in with Roger.
It's for St. Jude, but
I have a file called Living Greyhawk Gazetteer Extracts. And I think it's the things or complete, one of the two.
Yeah, so I think Eric gave the Triads an unedited pre-Roger Moore version that had more material.
It's got 264 pages in this PDF. Mm-hmm. I'm taking a quick look at the page count. Is 192 in the hard copy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Just a bit of lore there.
So, I love in your Keowish Royal Standards, you have different units that are highlighted, like the first Royal Halberdiers. Look at this. The, applicants are required to be between 6'2" and 6'4". It can't be shorter or taller. 220 and 240 pounds in weight. 15/16 pure soul or Iridian descent. How do you check that in how's that possible?
Who wrote this stuff?
I don't know.
Amazingly detailed.
Fully human without any deformities or physical impairments, and between 16 and 19 years old.
Wow. Scroll up to see who
there's no name on this one.
There's no name on it.
No, it's just by unit. Yeah. I was like, oh my gosh. That's awesome. That's a little crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if, you can have 1/16 back loony blood there. Oh my gosh. What's up, Garner? Yeah, that's pretty neat. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, the line. Yeah, so I guess. Oh my God, it keeps on going. Lion's claws, you must be pure here. 16 and 22, 5'10", and at 180 pounds at least. So they're checking to make sure that everyone's buff. That's pretty funny. I know Keoland's a human dominated area. So
can't do that now in 5e.
No. Well, you can do it in our Greyhawk still. I mean, it's Keoland. Yeah. Keoland's the oldest kingdom, right?
We have back Looney and Soul and Iridian and Flan sub races in Greyhawk Reborn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ghosts of the Highlands. This sounds interesting.
That's one of the reasons I'm glad WotC isn't doing a whole lot with Greyhawk. It couldn't be what it was.
Me
I
too.
agree
I'm very
100%.
happy the way it is.
Benign
I just wish
neglect.
they'd let us do what we want to do with it, and let us share.
Oh, look at all these units.
What we do freely.
Yep.
Yeah. Take the collar off and let us share. And if there's still an audience for it, it'll surface. If there isn't, it won't.
Right. Right. And Greyhawk has always been about your canon is different than my canon. Some people it's just a gold book. Other people it's all the way through. And you know what? So pick and choose what becomes your canon for your play experiences.
Yep.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Greyhawk is a world where we probably all agree on 80%, and it's the other 20% we play with. You know?
Exactly. Then everybody tweaks.
That 20% is 576 to 596.
That's definitely true. Their case, but that's okay. I mean, that's that you make Greyhawk your own. You know, there's nothing wrong with that.
Right. Absolutely.
It's fun.
Greyhawk is not allowed on DM's Guild. You're allowed to write Saltmarsh stuff on DM's Guild, but Greyhawk is not an open for publication setting.
Rex Felix, if you believe what some WotC people have said, it's because they think Greyhawk may be problematic.
Well, yeah.
Oh, well, I have no doubt that it's problematic. Not because of political whatever reasons, and it's because of IP and whether or not Gary's widow estate family would get any royalties. I believe it's landmines from.
We're going down.
Well, hang on, Gary. It's landmines because if they wrote an adventure where they featured a red dragon doing something, I could be like, well, I wrote that for Living Greyhawk. Where are my royalties? And there were thousands.
I think you're right there. But I think Peter settled all Gygaxian claims when he bought the company, so he paid them off again just to make sure that, because he was really respectful of the.
I mean, thinking you've paid something off, and then there's someone who's crazy and hiring a lawyer because.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, she needs to realize that you need to strike while the iron is hot, and while some of us still have a pulse. So, if she's holding on to material for this next generation, it's not going to materialize. The current generation is not taught anything about Gygax or Arneson.
No, the current generation is watching Critical Role.
Right.
Not all of them.
All
right. So we all know that what's their names are now in Greyhawk City. There's only one reason they'd be in Greyhawk City, and they ported from Forgotten Realms over, and that is they're going to start using it. Why would you do your live streams and all your cons in Greyhawk and not right? And that's the what's his name? Who's the guy who runs everything now? Crawford? Is that
Jeremy Crawford?
Yeah, his whole troop
Chris Perkins.
Perkins is with them, and they're in Greyhawk City now. They at PAX East, they teleported everyone from Forgotten Realms into Greyhawk. So
why wouldn't we think it would just be warmed over material from the City of Greyhawk box set? I just don't think.
I don't even think they would go to the box set, Gary. Look at what they did with those Assault March. They went and took the 3 U1, U2, 3 adventures, did the bare minimum to convert them to 5e, and they cut some of the cool stuff.
They didn't check in with Living Greyhawk, Keoland, while they wrote that.
And they could have just said, like, all right, who do we know? Girls, you're a Keoland Triad member. What the hell was going on in Keoland during Living Greyhawk that we can incorporate into this book?
Because they don't do that stuff.
That's a whole other show. I'm sorry, Dave and Sean. I just lost my mind.
Yes, go ahead.
We're doing our thing in Greyhawk.
You are, and that's
Greyhawk Reborn.
And
my theory has always been one of the reasons we did it was we wanted to become an immersive storytelling experience.
So, Dave,
not a knock against LG or anything else, but I saw so much crunchiness, especially in the later years. I still see murder hobos in our campaign. I'm not a big fan of that. I like heroic storytelling, and I want to see heroic storytelling.
So, Dave, how did Greyhawk Reborn get started?
That being said, play the game you want to play. D&D can be a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And we're sitting here bashing folks who are pulling people into D&D. Let's let people play the game they want to play.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to judge them on that. I mean, there are people I choose not to sit down at the table with. It always has been because I know it will not be a play experience that I will enjoy. and that
Yeah.
includes us DMs. But that gives me that choice to do that. So,
Yeah.
I've never watched Matt Mercer or whatever, what is a Critical Role? I've never watched that, but I don't care. He's doing good stuff for the game.
Yeah,
Exactly.
That's true.
I want to.
That's a segue.
Yeah. I want to ask Sean a question.
Please.
Because now we have a professional game designer here, and meaning all your discussion you've had on your podcast about rules and stuff. I'm kind of curious what what were your impression of what were the kind of quirks or the overall theme or specialities in the Keoland in Living Greyhawk? What were from a game mechanics perspective? Was there too much min-maxing? Was what kind of issues from that perspective, or what were the kind of the really takeaways you did from the organized play and Keoland specifically?
Yeah, I think just organized play in general. I had been DMing since I was 10 years old.
Yeah.
So first edition, second edition, some mostly homebrew, a little Greyhawk here, a little Forgotten Realms there. But I never really realized the breadth and the depth, as Dave was just saying, of the different play styles there were.
Yeah.
And so going to a convention, in New York City, then going to Gen Con, then going to Origins, then going to Winter Fantasy, and running the same adventure 7 or 8 times in a weekend, and realizing all the different ways that people play D&D or expect it to go was so eye-opening. It was such a teaching experience that I wouldn't be able to make games now unless I had gone through that process.
So it's a recommended crash course for game designers to do something like that. Yeah.
Totally. And I was lucky because when I joined the Triad, I didn't have to write adventures. I had to edit them and develop them. So I got to see everyone else's mistakes before I was making my own mistakes. Yeah. And I made my own mistakes once I started writing, but I got to at least see those mistakes, because I would have written exactly what they wrote, but as the person who had to translate that from this person's ideas of what the adventure will be to realizing that a DM would have to run it and realizing that players would have to play it, I was able to learn that translation. So when I sat down to write, I at least had seen that mistake made, and now I could avoid that mistake and make my own mistakes that I would hopefully then learn from. In Keoland specifically, as I said earlier, it was that being able to take a really rich, vibrant world and translate it into a game that would be a tool for other people to tell stories with. So you don't want to tell a story as you're writing an adventure. You want to facilitate a person facilitating a story for other people. So it's sort of twice removed as you write an adventure. And that was really fascinating to see other people do, then to be the writer, then be the DM, then be a player. Playing your own adventure that you've written while someone else runs it. If they don't know you're the adventure, or you're the writer, that is a trip and a half.
Yeah.
Because, they'll be like, who wrote this crap?
Yeah.
I did. No, but you can see,
That's
like,
funny.
Where did they get confused?
Yeah.
Where did they not run it like you had intended it to be written? And why? Was it them? Was it me? Was it just were they reading the table and realizing if I ran it as it's written, the table's going to hate it, so I'm going to tweak it a little bit. And that again taught me just the whole process of game design and how people play games. And so it was just such an education.
Play testing. Play testing on steroids.
Yeah,
exactly.
One follow-up question. Do you think Wizard of the Coast took feedback from Living Greyhawk that influenced how 3rd edition evolved as a game? Was that part of the setup, so to speak?
I'm going to give a little bit longer answer. I apologize.
That's okay.
Over the years, I worked with Living Greyhawk, and then I worked with Zendrick Expeditions, which was the Eberron living campaign, even though it wasn't a living campaign. And then I worked on Living Forgotten Realms, and then and I've worked even up into 5th edition. I've written for the Adventurers League, which is the 5th edition version, and so I have experience with Wizards' interaction with their organized play, whether it's Living Greyhawk or RPGA up to Adventurers League. And they And sometimes they are just so heavily invested. They're pouring money into it and they're using it as a tool the best way it can be used. And sometimes over the years, they've actively hated it and they just wish they could stop it because for a variety of reasons, some good and because it does get out of control. If Living Greyhawk got out of control, it got beyond. And so they do learn things from it, but it all depends on who at Wizards is interfacing with it. Chris Tulloch came directly from Living Greyhawk and became the head of the RPGA, or one of the heads of the RPGA. So he knew exactly what he was doing, and he created D&D Encounters, which was a 4th edition system. It was a organized play campaign that ran at game stores. It was amazing. I would go to game stores, big and small, and there would be 5 or 6 tables all running this Encounters program. That Chris Brain, it was his brainchild with the experiences he got directly from Living Greyhawk. So there are people that definitely know that. Chris Lindsay is another person who was involved in Living Greyhawk on the RPGA side, and then he became a producer at Wizards. That's his title now. So the things that he learned, he is using in the books that they're creating. So I don't know, when you say, does Wizards of the Coast learn? Wizards of the Coast is a bunch of people. Some people have
the
learned
development team and the rules team and
Ron Lundeen, I wrote Core Adventure for Living Greyhawk, Core 401. He wrote Core 402. And now he is working on 6th edition for Wizards of the Coast. So he learned something, I'm sure, and now he's putting that into his work.
And same thing with Paizo. So in that sense, both Pathfinder and later editions of D&D have both learned from Living Greyhawk, because a lot of the people that were involved in Living Greyhawk either went to Paizo or to Wizards of the Coast afterwards.
So I'm sure that there are a ton of lessons learned. Both positive lessons and also lessons of we maybe shouldn't do that next time. And
it's interesting that Living Greyhawk was under the 3rd edition. That is the crunchiest version of D&D ever, so to speak, meaning the rules heavy, the most mechanically intricate, and all that. It's interesting. Is that something that you see as a big negative or a positive or neutral? Meaning, what is organized play? It's beneficial to have a very crunchy system when you play it, do you think, or?
And I think every edition has its favored audience. And I think 3rd edition did draw in the crowd that loved the crunch the most. And so when you draw that crowd in, it becomes a self-selecting pool. And so what I noticed with Living Greyhawk was when it first started, when I joined the first 2 or 3 years, people were coming in and they were really loving the story. And they were, getting into these meta orgs, and they weren't joining the meta orgs just to get this thing so they could take this prestige class. They were doing it for story reasons. And we saw on all the forums, people just writing pages and pages of stories about their characters and their experiences. And it was brilliant. And then as things went on, you would go to tables and it would be more about what's your build than what's your background. And that becomes harder for casual players to come into the campaign. And so it then starts to lose players unless you give them specific on-ramps to come in a more storytelling focused way than a more what's your build. You don't have a nightstick and you're a cleric. Well, then what feats do you have? You don't have this feat. Well, you're not going to do our table much good. That's not a way to bring in new players.
I had
that was part of the arms race.
And that problem, and it was carried over. So in a lot of sense, because I played a lot in Pathfinder organized play, and that was very much the mentality that way. The build and all that was part of it. And for me as a player, it was a great way to learn all the crunch of the system. Meaning, if I wanted to run something in PF1, to play some organized play was fantastic because you got a run through of all the how encounters done, all the environmental rules, all the conditions, and because it was condensed and there was so much crunch in it. And so that's a benefit. So in that sense, I guess a crunchy system, if you want to learn a system, play organized play, because you really get to ringer through, you get to use every part of it. Yeah, Dave.
I also think that another aspect of that is when you're dealing with an organized play campaign and you're looking for consistency across the board, it's much easier to write, create, and have consistent adventures with a mathematician, if you will.
That's true.
Of the adventures, and most of the LGs and adventures, and oftentimes what I hear now from other living campaigns is that it becomes, okay, you're hired. Here's your 3 combat encounters. There's a couple other little things with role plays in between, but that's basically what it is. And when you start playing that way, and you play, in my instance, play 7-8 years of LG, you start to think that's the way all adventures are, as opposed to a home game. And I know very early on in our GHR stuff, and I played a few more years of LFR as well, you realize that you have been conditioned. That is your expected play experience, and you lose that immersiveness because you get to that crunchy part, and it's easier to write for. It's easier to have a consistent campaign if you can make that mathematized consistently. That's my opinion. If you're looking for a consistent play experience,
that's a good point. Yeah,
I personally like to turn creative judges loose and let them do what they're going to do at the table. Let them feed off what the table's doing, and let them be more of a first edition, second edition Gygaxian judge that reacts to what the player's doing, as opposed to 3035, which gave you rules for how to pick your nose.
Well, that's important,
right?
Yep.
And to follow up on something that Dave said there, and also that Sean said earlier, I'm like 2 follow-ups. In early years of Living Greyhawk, they had adopted, I believe, from Living City, the table vote. At the end of each adventure, the players would vote for who had been the best role player at that table, and that person would get some sort of cert or a treasure item, first pick or something. What was it, John? Do you remember?
It was a what do they call a die bump, where you could like add +2 to a die roll.
Okay.
Like a cert piece of paper.
Like piece of paper, yeah.
And every player had to vote. And so that highly encouraged in early years of the campaign, less focus on character build. And 3.0 was new. People were figuring it out, and more focus on the role playing. And then to follow up on what Dave said, Living Greyhawk mandated a set number of encounter levels based on the average party level. The simple formula is 3 times parentheses APL +2 close parentheses. So if you were a 12th level group, let's do easier math. You're a 10th level group. You were expected to encounter 36 encounter levels spread over 3 encounters. So that could be 10, 12, and 14, or 3 12s or whatever. And it could be a trap, a fight, and a fight. And you could get some experience from role playing. But the reason why I bring this up, and I talk about it in great detail in my book, $9.95 on Amazon, in the front chapter.
I'll be waiting for that one. Yep.
One of the biggest failings I think LG had was having that rule in place. And instead of just saying, you know what, author, if you want to write an adventure where there's no combats and we don't think it sucks as editors, you can do that, and it will still give out 450 experience points to lower levels because you role played and had a good time for 4 hours. And you know what, adventurers or authors, if you want to write a dungeon crawl where they have to get through 6 rooms to get the MacGuffin, and as long as we think this can happen in 4 or 8 hours, if it's a 2-slot adventure, then you can do that. Then you would have given authors the freedom to explore off the 3 encounter narrative, which I think a lot of us, like, I think in my home term, in my brain, I kind of think, 4 hours, what am I going to do? You know, I could probably do 3 things for 5e or whatever. But I've kind of weaned myself off that for my home games, but that's still in my brain. I've got 4 hours. I want to design 3 encounters.
We're coming up on time, so I want to ask you a question that kind of got through me from someone else very important, Gary. Sean, Dave, what were some of your one or two of your favorite adventures during the time at Keoland?
Wow. Hard to pick a few. I will tell you that some of the ones that I enjoyed the most was Kevin Lawson's Pemlos adventures. Obviously, as you can tell, I'm much more of a story person than I am a crunchy guy. Although I could do crunchy if need be. And those were just immersive storytelling experiences with characters that you just got into. These are NPCs that you fell in love with, and you really wanted to reach out and help them. Those were some of the best. Christian Elipanarian wrote some very good adventures. Year 4 and year 5 to kind of start working through some storylines. And I'll be honest with you, LG was originally meant as a year 1 through 5 thing. Jeff did a great job, Geoff, however you wish to pronounce it, did a great job telling a coordinated storyline for 5 years. And I think, years 6, 7, and 8 became add-ons, and it was a little different. So I think the best stories were told through years 1 through 5 because you were told you had 5 years. So you developed stuff. Sam developed stuff for Keoland. Sean worked on it and helped develop, that. And then after that, it was like, here it is. And now, there's a little more. Those were some of my favorites. I remember almost exclusively my favorite tables were playing with authors. I remember going to Winter Fantasy one year when it was up in New Jersey, and we went up there as regulators, and we had our table set up, and then this guy comes over and taps the DM on the shoulder and says, "I'll take this table." It was a 2-rounder. I think it was a 2-rounder. Maybe it was 1-rounder, but it was Sean who came over to run our table, and we had great times up at the cons up in New York, up at SUNY, and we knew him from there and such, and his group of great guys. So it was more about the people that I played with, people like Judy, people like Eric Menge and Tios and Joe Tom and John Tom and those guys from all over, and John Lent and Jay Stapinski and Ron Goodwin and the guys in Philly and Finn Walsh, and you go through all these things and you pull out names and you're still going to forget half the people that just made LG what it was. So it was more about the people and the community that it built. It built a gaming community that has never been rivaled. And I don't know if it will ever be rivaled again, to see that many people doing that many wonderful things for gaming on a mostly volunteer basis. I mean, it's astounding when you think about it.
Yeah, true.
Oh, it was ridiculous how much free labor they got out of us. You're right. Those relationships last to this day. On Monday, I played a PF2E game run by Tom Brister. Tom Brister was BK Triad before I was, and we're still in touch. My buddy Britt Fry was in my first wedding, and he was a BK Triad member, and then I used Circle member, and we're still in touch. He's over in Korea, and we try and see each other when we're both in the same place, same space time, So the relationships, people found LG because they wanted to play 3rd edition or Greyhawk or whatever. I think a lot of the players made friends and bonded with at least one person that they're still friends with to this day, at least.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Absolutely.
For sure.
Sean, what was your answer to that question?
I like Dave. There were so many. I played the first year of Keoland Adventures as a player and just had such great DMs. And I remember Nevermind, Evil in the Woods, and those adventures. Even March Through Keoland, which was sort of like you just go to this city and you see someone burning a witch or about to burn a witch, and you get the idea of what Keoland is. And this, yeah, and even that, but the DMs I had for those first 3 or 4 adventures were amazing. The first adventure I really worked on as a triad was called The Tomb of Talakis Papalakis. I can still say it. And it was just such that was the first one, and it was who wrote it? John Baker wrote it. And just working with him first time I really sat down and worked with the author and sharing ideas. And I probably took 5 times as long as I should have, but it was the first one, so I wanted to get it right. And we're working with the authors and helping them help us bring these stories to life was just a great experience.
I would
Cons
probably
were
kill more
amazing.
PCs than anybody else.
Yeah.
Falling off that top tower at
Falling off the
50
tower
feet
with
at
the
low
bell,
APL, get
the
pushed
swinging
off.
bell
Yeah.
knocking people off.
Good
Yeah.
times, man. Good
Yeah.
times.
I don't think we've talked about this a lot on the show, but at cons, we had the amazing experience of like an adventure would get released and your buddy might play. Let's say a con ran Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Your buddy might play it Friday night and you might play it like Saturday morning. If for whatever reason he didn't have anything scheduled, he might come over and just watch you all smirking because he knows what's about to happen to you.
Yeah.
And then when you played it and you didn't have anything going on Saturday afternoon, you might go watch your other buddy, or you might go run it as a DM once you had played it as a player. And there was a lot of like, hey, what did you guys do during this? Once you had played it, you didn't want to spoil it for anyone. And you could just talk about that in normal home games. Like what happens in your game and what happens in my game are completely unconnected. But in Living Greyhawk, someone might be like, oh, that's why the green dragon lived, because you guys did X, Y, and Z, and we did A, B, and C.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just always thought that was really cool.
Well, and that's one of the reasons that 5th edition did so well, was because they slowed down their rate of release of adventures and content. And there was this zeitgeist of players who we're all playing the same adventure. There's not 12 adventures or 15 adventures we could buy. There's just this one. And this is the adventure for this year. And we play it, we can share stories. And then when you start releasing 26 books all at once and nobody knows what campaign they're supposed to be in, it makes it harder to have that group storytelling experience. That's
a good point, Sean. Yeah. I'd never thought about it in those terms, but it's a shared communal experience that, and I think I'm going to just say it again, Critical Role is providing some of that for some segment of the 5e population, in that they're watching other people. It's like a TV show. When we all were watching Lost 20 years ago, we were like, oh my God, the polar bear. Did you see the polar bear? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know we barely scratched the surface like usual because we're off tangents like always, but that's okay. We need to have everyone back for a future discussion. In particular, Gary, you need to hop back on, and we need to go in like an in-depth discussion on the history of the Silent Ones. I really think that should be a whole show in itself. So
you could do that on a Gabbin too, couldn't you?
Yeah.
I could.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you could do that. Yeah.
Gary should come on and talk.
It's a great
about
topic.
I mean, I could tell you all about them, but they'd probably kill me.
Oh yeah,
true.
But as long as we get the story,
I mean, I learned something tonight that I did not know that your one the Malgari were around fighting Vector back in the day, and that was really cool. I mean, that's the number one thing that I learned. I had no idea about that. That's a neat little bullet point that I took out from today. All right, let's do some shout outs. How about that? Dave, and you got anything you want to talk about? What's going on with Greyhawk Reborn?
Just trying to get back to live gaming when we can. There's there's a lot less conventions than there were previously. We're doing some online stuff. We'll be at some stuff later in the year. What's the October one, Jay?
October 6th through the 8th, Virtual Grad Con 4.
We'll be there. We'll be at MEPACon.
Awesome.
Check out our Discord. Check out our Facebook. Check out our Patreon. And we do some of our online games on Discord. Trying to get more stuff up on our Patreon. Hopefully, we can get some adventures up on our Patreon, and that's a way that we can release stuff. We're much more interested and focused. I want to say interested. We need to focus our time on creating play opportunities as opposed to editing and formatting adventures, because that's what we're about, creating those play opportunities. So thanks for having me on. Always a blast. I learned a lot.
Dave, this is great. Thank you very much.
I'm retired from my teaching job, so I have a lot of availability if you need me. And
good.
As you've noticed, I tend to be a little opinionated, and I get on
that's perfect.
That's perfectly fine.
We really appreciate the support too.
It's a pleasure to participate. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Right. I hope the audience, goes and finds you guys. what you're doing is important.
Thank you. If anybody's interested, get a hold of me. You can find me on any of those locations that I mentioned. And we started out with small groups of people developing areas because they had stories they want to tell. If you have stories in Greyhawk you want to tell, please get in touch with us, or you just want to be a part of it to help create. We call them campaign groups, but they're meta orgs. If you want to just kind of be a gopher and help pull content together and do some editing and stuff, we can always use help to tell stories and do more work for Greyhawk.
Do you have a adventure template that you share with prospective authors?
Yes, we do. We have some adventure writing guidelines. We have a pretty intense campaign guide that is downloadable on Patreon, including a number of organizations and our own rules and things that we have. So,
MPL, you're going to go to Warduke Press or Greyhawk Reborn. They're the two you can find searches.
One of these days, I really do want to pitch some ideas to you guys for either my Ghost of Saltmarsh homebrew original Keoland stuff, or heaven forbid, I write a Bandit Kingdoms adventure.
Mm-hmm. We'd love that. We've been focused primarily in the Sheldamar Valley because obviously
that's where we live.
I was involved in Keoland. And our people that came in, we wasn't going to touch Jeff because of respect for Eric Bengay and what they done, and knew that we couldn't do it justice. So we worked in the Sea Princes and a few other areas, the Yeomanry. But we've pretty much stayed roughly around in the Sheldamar Valley. Love to be able to tell some stories in other places. The Great Kingdom has always interested me in that whole area. So, but there's
if you can shoot me the
map of Greyhawk.
If you shoot me the template, the adventure writing template, I can find. I think I probably already downloaded the other stuff, but I don't think I have that. Then I can look at it and think,
So note also that the Greyhawk Reborn games fill up fast during Virtual Greyhawk Con. There's usually between 15 and 17 of them. But there's plenty of opportunities. But you want to make sure you register, sign up, and you get in on them because they're great games. And we have a lot of great DMs for those. So, and that's, like I said, registration is only 6 weeks away. So end of June it starts registration for that first weekend in October. So it's coming. It'll be here before we know it. Time flies when you get old. So, with Dave, thank you. Sean, what do you want to shout out?
I'm going to shout out Ghostfire Gaming. That's the company that I work for now. They are an Australian game company working on 5e supplements. You can also find me on the podcast or YouTube. Look at Mastering Dungeons for one of them and the Eldritch Lorecast for the other.
Excellent. Very cool, and we really appreciate your participation tonight, and thank you. I know
Thank you.
You came on from a meeting.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sean. I'm glad that your meeting with the Australians allowed you to still join us here for the full show. That was great.
Now, this brings back a lot of great memories, and I appreciate you sharing all your expertise, especially Gary and Sam. It was good to talk to you virtually.
Yeah. Let's get Sam some technology help. Let's get him like an intern or something.
Yes.
Yep.
Sam has stories.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Gary, you want to shout anything out?
Yes. Hold on. I'm posting a link to Sean's website in the chat. Ghostfire Gaming.
Yeah.
And we're working on a new zine called Visions of Greyhawk. The entire roster first articles is complete. I have an article in there where I'm going to be adding, because obviously Casey thinks there's too few gods in Greyhawk. I'm adding a new god to the world of Greyhawk.
Too many.
But is it a new god? You'll see.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
That's awesome. Will that be a PDF? Will that be digital only?
Yeah, although we're going to be creating a version that can be uploaded to printing.
To print, a print version. Okay.
Places you can print
it. Won't
if
be
you
a
want.
mailed out zine though. Okay.
No money exchanged.
Anna, thanks for linking that podcast. That's great.
Yeah, it's on Podbean, but it's on the Spotify and all over the place. It's awesome. Yep.
So Anna, Casey, and let's do Mike first because Mike goes, I don't have anything.
Hey.
What you got, Mike?
As a member of the Silent Ones from way back, I'm used to remaining quiet during Q lore.
Mm-hmm.
Poor Mike.
He's going to confiscate our magic items.
Yes.
No, the only thing I'm going to throw out is rest in peace, Russ Nicholson.
Yeah.
Great illustrator who died
Yeah.
from Fiend Folio and
Thank you
other
for reminding
publications.
me. It's sad. My favorite picture of his of all time is this one. I had it ready and I completely forgot. And I really the Revenant choking the guy to death in the Fiend Folio. I mean, so many Githyankai picture.
Yeah. Iconic ones that
I'm a big fan of black and white illustration. It's a huge influence.
A lot.
And this art was like a huge step up. I know there's classics. I know the older guys are classics. But I mean, just the style and detail to me for these pieces of art were what I remember from the Fiend Folio.
Yeah. And they become D&D iconics that are still with us today. They defined a lot of these monsters and what they're still defined by these first illustrations.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
So thanks, Dave, Sean, and Casey, and Gary for coming
Definitely,
on.
guys.
Great
it's
discussion.
Awesome. Yeah, having you here.
Casey, you got 10 seconds.
Oh, well, that's not long enough. I want to, while we have him, I want to thank Gary Holian because he helped me with my Seton article last year or 2 years ago, which appeared in Oath Journal number 36.
Awesome.
So if you want to see a write-up of Seton, which I based on the Welsh town of Conway, has a castle that's on a river coastal border. That's where you can find that write-up, and it has 5e stats for Lord Obney in it. Not the final stats, so send me a private message if you need the AC official 5e stats for Lord Obney at 12th level. He's an ass kicker, unlike the version WotC put into Tales from the Awning Portal against the Giants. That's just my little dig at them for that weak-ass version. I have a project I'm working on called Too Many Gods, but I've kind of set that one to the side. I think there's too many gods. I'm trying to consolidate them and make a tighter mythos for Greyhawk. I'll get back to that shortly. I'm running Ghosts of Saltmarsh. We're in our 4th year of the campaign. We are about to get to the final chapter of the book, The Styes. But right now, they are underwater, and they're about to face off with Sunaferal Brightrobes, the Bone Shadow himself, as well as Athux, who is a half-sibling to Ayu's Cambion, the Captain Zendros Tiefling, she's in there, and Lord Obney, as I just mentioned. They've been running into my Ghosts of Saltmarsh bad guys are Iusians. Go figure. That's what I've changed all the bad guys to Iusians.
That's
so
cool.
My 10th and 11th level PCs are trying to deal with some Kraken stuff, and the Iusians have beaten them to the Kraken's lair. So yeah, they're in for a world of hurt this Saturday. And then my Monday campaign is is Candlekeep, which I run as a Scooby-Doo style episodic. The PCs work in Candlekeep, and then shenanigans ensues when, a book flies off the shelf and the portal opens up or whatever.
That's cool.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun with that. And then finally, I'm collecting in the back of my brain all these ideas for the next Living Greyhawk book, the unofficial history of Living Greyhawk. It won't be a summary of the adventures because obviously that's impossible. But we've had a ton of these shows. At this point, we've had some great Triad members and Circle members on and RPGA members on, and we've really learned about the history of Living Greyhawk. And if no one saves all that, it'll be on YouTube, and people will find it here and there if they search for Keoland. But that's kind of something I think I'm going to start working on later this year. So
cool.
That's my 10-second shout out.
Anna,
I don't have much new to shout out. Hopefully there can be a mapping live stream on Friday night. I'm busy on an event early in the afternoon, so I'm not really sure about time yet. So we'll see. But I hope to be back by 6 and doing it. It's a little bit up to LA traffic, so we know how LA traffic is, but we'll see. Yeah. So I try to not schedule anything else, but this time I had to photography assignment. But I'm hopefully I can be back by 6, and I will work on Crit Wall again, and it's taking shape. And I will also talk a little bit about upcoming scenarios for my campaign, because we're going to wrap up my Shieldlands campaign hopefully this summer. So there will be some Need Fest festivities that will be fun, and there will be an after party. We'll see if we can stream that. I'm not sure we can, so we'll see if we can have a non-official or something. We'll see. Yeah, we'll see what happens. But yeah, so there's a whole bunch of other stuff in the making, but I'll skip that for now.
We have Gabbard on Sunday night. We can really delve into.
Yeah, Friday and Sunday. So yeah.
All right, so I'm going to brag a little bit tomorrow night's. That says 1001 because I messed up all the numbers. So the 1000th, it's all messed up because just but our 1000th adventures on
your 1000th is scheduled for June
3rd. I got that. I'll
right.
share
so
that
you're doing your 1001st
before
999 too, because this one's going to last multiple weeks. It's a mess. All right, that's tomorrow night. But I want to share. We got some new stuff on the table, and this is if you have this print, if you want it from us, this is the Scriptorium from Gamescape 3D. Bill and Mr. Crafter did it up. Boom. All right. This is Sojourn's. Yeah, I know. It's just minor stuff. It
looks cool.
Yeah, this is Sojourn's Repose. This is the location for the Maesters north of the Free City of Altamira. Yeah. So there we go. You got a rookery here. Even look, you got all the birds and the nests and stuff. You even have a rookery. So like the Maesters, it's pretty really a fantastic 3D sculpt. It took Bill.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it took Bill. I know it took Bill a while to get it all up, and we have it on the table now. And that's where the adventure is going to take place tonight, tomorrow night, and Saturday. Because remember, we have a special game. I have the youngsters, Brits from A Nerdy Guide to D&D on a special game Saturday morning, 9 a.m., and that's called Missing at Sojourn's Repose. So those adventures are kind of tied together with two different groups. So that will be the first time they've all ever played old school. They're all 5 years. So this will be a fun adventure. That's Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Some other stuff coming up in the future. Here's the 1000th, Sunday, June 3rd, 9 a.m. My friends and I are going to sit around the table with all the stuff out, and we're going to play Tomb of the Lizard King, a little modified slightly to fit it in 8 or 9 hours.
Right.
And just run it, and that'll be our 1000th official 1000th adventure I've ever DM'd in the campaign, going all the way back to 1980.
That module is brutal. There's some instant kill traps in there.
I know, man, but it's going to be modded up, and and these are 8th level characters going in it, so they're a little higher than normal.
But there's a trap that literally, if you fall in it, it doesn't say how much damage it does to you. It just says you die.
Yeah, well,
it's hilarious.
They're big boys.
What's a little death between friends?
What's a little death?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Saturday.
I converted it to 5e. It's a fun adventure.
Yeah. Saturday, June 10th. Ed Greenwood and 2 Drink Minimum with Eric Boyd and Eric Mengi. Unfortunately, Anna and Tony can't make it. So we're doing a crossover event. We got the Slav Squad, the all-female cast with them. What could go wrong, right? With Ed and a bunch of dirty mouth females playing in a game. Again, we remember the last time we did this in December, it was like one of the highest rated shows we ever had, and it was just crazy. So that'll be a fun adventure. And then the night after that, on the 11th, James Jacobs comes to talk about Savage Tide Adventure Path.
Nice.
Okay? That's on Sunday, June 11th. Anna is in Sweden.
Yeah, we'll see if I can get up 2 o'clock in the morning or something, because I've not a formal schedule done yet. My mother is working hard on it, so we'll see. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I've also asked a special co-host to join us.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He better, and I asked Eric Mona to co-host with me.
That will be perfect.
Okay,
so,
let's see if he does.
And I can rest assured that it will be handled well. Yep.
But when I when James and I scheduled this, I forgot Anna's in Sweden at that time, but I don't want to reschedule it now. But yes, so we've never talked about Savage Tide at all. in years, except for the one time James was on. It was a short discussion, so we weren't getting into the weeds on that on the Savage Tide, and that's enough because after that I'll be on vacation for a week, family vacation. So let's do the giveaway, and then we'll raid into someone and call it a night here. Last call, exclamation point drawing. You get your choice of a classic D&D reprint. Like I said, if you haven't gotten this, Treasures of Greyhawk is the best bang for the buck. It's got a ton of adventures in it, and they're all really cool. So, and thank you, Delaweth. That was very kind of you. All right, I am closing it out here. Here we go. Let's see who wins. Bum, 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 bum. And don't forget, we got multiple Gamescape 3D giveaways and a Reaper giveaway tomorrow night too. Winner is Amy.
Awesome. Congratulations, Amy.
Amy, you let me know. We can talk about it by whisper what you want, and I'll send it out in case I owe you from Sunday. I'll get that out to you tomorrow too.
Yeah.
Once again, Dave and Sean, thanks. I'm going to raid into and I had them on in a DMs roundtable a couple of years ago, and they have a ton of viewers now. But I'm going to raid into them. You know what? No, Phoenixy Walk. Is Phoenixy on yet? Phoenixy is got a fundraiser tonight, and I may raid into Phoenixy. Let me just check, see if they're live yet. He's live. Charity live stream. So I'm gonna raid into Phoenixy. All right, we'll do that. I'm gonna make because John's a good guy over there. Everyone, thank you. What a great show. Wonderful discussion. Please come back. Like I said, we'll delve into some other topics. I'm always I love roundtables or Q&A ones. We can always do some great things.
If you're friends with Conforti, poke him, because I keep trying to get him to come on and do a show about the Sheldamar and Bissell. I believe he was a Bissell Triad member. I could have that wrong. And the Living Greyhawk Deities book. So I keep poking him, but if you are like still friends with him on social media, that'd be very helpful.
It's always good. It's always good to have some new faces on, people we haven't had on before. Teos would be, I'd love to have him, like I said, him on.
And honestly, you should put Teos on with Ed, because Teos is also a Forgotten Realms expert.
Maybe that'll be a carrot. I can't use Ed as a carrot so many times.
I mean, who knows? They may have already met because Teos did so much 4E playtesting, right?
It's very possible, but maybe a good carrot. Hey, you want to come on with Ed? So, yeah. But I'll work it up there. And like I said, I'll talk to Ed shortly. Ed's always super busy. See you all tomorrow night, 7:30. Thank you. And Jay's going to hit the wrong button here probably. There we go. Sorry for running late, guests. Really appreciate it. Let me set the rate up real quick here.
And Sean,
thanks to the audience.
Yeah, thank you. Sean, I just want to say thank you so much. I'm working out new house rules for my campaign, and all the discussions you had on rules have been fantastic. It's so valuable. So it's on mastering dungeons and stuff. It's perfect. Yep.
Thank you. Well, Teos is the smart one. I just follow his lead.
Oh no, come on! You're both doing fantastic job there. So
awesome, 78. That's great. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good night, everybody.
See you tomorrow night.
Night.
80 going in. Let's make sure it went.
Perfect. Yep.